Hello, patrons. It is Tuesday, March 13th, 2018, and this is your Cup of Jones. Cheers. Good morning, everybody. Feeling good today. Got lots of good rest last night. Lost an hour this weekend. Saw some people in chat actually talking now. They're like, oh, hour early Cup of Jones? And it is fascinating to see how this weird, wacky, outdated concept of time saving throughout the world with daylight savings is having ripple effects across this great planet of ours. That's one of the things I really love about Easy Allies and the job that I've had working in the games industry for the internet, working the age of the internet, is experiencing everybody at different times. It is, I wouldn't say early for me, but this is the first thing that I do in the day. And it's interesting, some people say, for example, Rick Hogue is saying good afternoon. So it is a different time of day for everybody. They should stop with the daylight saving. It's absurd. But it's an interesting example of society and how you put something in place and it can be really, really difficult to stop doing it, even though it doesn't make sense anymore. Hopefully Easy Allies doesn't do anything like that. But if we do, the time to discuss it and to go over it is now. Now. I was going to say nigh, but then I picked now, but my brain didn't get quite caught up with my mouth. This is the last week of operation for Easy Allies before we turn 2. We're going to be 2 years old. Next week on Wednesday, it is March 21st. That will be the 2-year anniversary of the creation of Easy Allies. To celebrate, we're doing all sorts of stuff. This Sunday night, 8 p.m. Pacific time at Tommy's Place at USC here in Southern California. If you are not able to be at that spot at that time, you can join us twitch.tv/EasyAllies. We will be doing a 2-hour concert to celebrate being a thing for 2 straight years. So you can watch that on twitch.tv/EasyAllies. If you'd like to be there in person, 8 p.m. Pacific time here in SoCal, near downtown LA. You can buy tickets. You can go to Eventbrite, search EG Allies, or you can see the tickets here. I will also be posting something that is late. I was working on other things this weekend, so I didn't have the time to get all the directions together, but we are overdue on putting up a post here on patreon.com/EasyAllies that specifically details where you should park, where you can meet us up Monday following the concert for a very informal, casual meetup, and then Tuesday night, which will be the 20th, the night before our anniversary, we'll be doing a 4-hour live stream instead of a 2-hour. We'll be starting 2 hours earlier at 4 p.m. instead of 6 p.m. Pacific time usually. And then, of course, the day after that is our actual anniversary. I will probably be sleeping in, not doing a heck of a lot that Wednesday. I'll probably be playing lots of Sea of Thieves, because that launches the day before, and I'm hoping to help out with that review. So those are your 3 big events. Sunday night, concert. Monday afternoon, this is Monday starting at noon, a Jolly meetup, which will be close to where the concert venue is, and then Tuesday night we will be gathering for a special live stream that you can be a part of. More details coming up on Patreon. So of course, Easy Allies Concert Revengeance, and tonight, the last stream of year 2 before we turn 2 years old and enter our 3rd year. I said we turn 3 when I built the Lego set, and that was incorrect. But we'll be doing a Hall of Greats tonight. So no game being played. We will be discussing some of the greatest games of all time. I'm picking an interesting game tonight. I'm picking a game that I'm curious to see. If I walk out of Hall of Greats tonight with nothing, I would be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. If I walk out of Hall of Greats with this inducted into the Hall of Greats, I will be extremely proud of my friends and coworkers for putting it into the Hall of Greats. But it's an interesting test. I so far have not had a game enter into the Hall of Greats. I have had amazing games like World of Warcraft get so shunned that they were banned for a full year. So the next Hall of Greats, apparently, I can finally bring up World of Warcraft again as a viable contender with people in attendance like Ben Moore and Mike Huber, which would think would maybe throw a vote at World of Warcraft for being good, but I guess not. So tonight will be an interesting test. Definitely a game I believe in. Definitely one of the greats. There's no question. But is it sexy enough? Is it a game that, that game. That's one of those Chrono Trigger type games that just everybody loves. This is very clearly one of the greats. No question. Will it be in the Easy Allies Hall of Greats? That'll be, we shall see. And if you watched the Easy Allies Community Showcase featuring Ben Moore recently, then you will see a contribution sent to us by one of our lovely community members that we will be showing off, hopefully tonight, if we can get everything up and running. So stay tuned for that. Also, worth mentioning, the Souls Retrospective Part 4 is up. You can go to the Easy Allies YouTube page, or you can check it out on Patreon. I put a little post talking about just working with Brad and watching him play those games, and a couple of nice things to say about Bloodborne, because I dearly love Bloodborne. I played it 3 or 4 times. Almost as good as Witcher 3. Really great game. But wanted to say that in the Patreon post, so I was like, I'll keep that out, but I'll save it for Cup of Jones. A little salt there. A little Bloodborne versus Witcher 3 salt. But Part 5, which I submitted a final edit for yesterday, and we are currently going over, make sure everything is pronounced okay, everything is, all the details are because, man, you double, you triple, Bloodworth. I mean, all of you can imagine how much, thought and care Blood goes into making posts and checking, crossing his T's and dotting his I's, and we completely missed that we got the release date wrong of actual Bloodborne in the video, and so we issued a fix that if you watch the video now, it's fixed up on YouTube. But that's actually kind of nice about posting stuff on Patreon early, is because our lovely patrons get in there and they go, whoops, that's wrong, and we go, oh, and so we can, on YouTube, one of the things that sucks that you'd think we'd gotten to that point, with technology where you can replace a file, but once you upload to something on YouTube, it's locked to that URL, and so you can't replace stuff. I guess it's kind of the same thing as Twitter. Like, then you could maybe go back on stuff, and people will be like, "Hey, you had that weird thing in your video," and you're like, "What thing?" And they're like, I would have had to download it, and then maybe I could have edited that later. So there's no way to prove that that weird thing was in your video. But it'd be nice to replace stuff. But we can replace stuff if we post a Patreon link that has a link to a YouTube video, and then we can just change that link on Patreon. And then when it goes live for everybody else, then we can make that live link the correct link. So always a little bit nerve-wracking to do pickups as far as voiceover is concerned, because it's a different day. I might sound differently, even just subtly. If there's just a slight tonal shift in my voice, you can kind of be like, whoa, what just happened? And then, which is why whenever I do pickups, I like to do the whole paragraph, because I don't like to do a sentence. Because if I just do like 8 words, you'll definitely hear that. You'll be like, whoa, you just got all strange there for a second. But Souls Retro Part 4 up now. Part 5 goes up Sunday. Sunday's also our concert, kicking off our 2-year anniversary shenanigans. And tonight, Twitch.tv/Easy Allies. Join us for another Hall of Greats. Let's get into feedback. Let's see how everybody's doing. Do patrons outrank Bloodworth now? No. Everybody seems okay. All right. Adamantum. What games are you looking forward to the most coming out in the next year? I'm assuming 2018. Mine is the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Oh, Adamantum, I hope that happens. I hope you get an update soon, because we haven't heard anything on that for a long time. But not sure if that'll be out in the next year or my lifetime, LOL. So you brought some light there. I didn't have to. My 3 most anticipated games of 2018 are Red Dead Redemption 2, Spider-Man, and Dreams. I hope to get Dreams in 2018. We're supposed to, but I don't know. Media Molecule has been doing this weird thing where, like, every time I get my hands on it, every time I get over it, I'm like, oh, Dreams! And I get close to Dreams. They're like, yeah, we're not letting people play it right now, but if you could just kind of, like, look at it, and, like, we'll answer, like, one of your questions. And we're like, all right. And then we get that. And then, like, the next week, they're like, hey, this random person came by our studio and played Dreams for 8 hours. Whee! And I'm like, hi! I would like to do that. Like, I'll pay a plane ticket to fly up and play Dreams. Can I play Dreams? So it's weird. Like, very limited people are getting into to play Dreams, but they all like it. So I'm assuming if all those people are playing Dreams, it can be something that we could be playing. But I'm so excited about that game. I'm so excited about the potential of that game. I have more doubts about Dreams than I have of Red Dead. I probably have most comfort with thinking of how Red Dead is going to end up. Some questions still about Spider-Man. Definitely need to play that game and discern how that controls. But it's Insomniac, so it just seems, I don't know. Seems like a sure thing. Brandon K. Gann, why change the thumbnail format? Why the change to the thumbnail format? I like both the former thick sidebar and the current top thin line, but I was wondering if it was just a creative change or whether the picture or whatever the game the video is about needed to be more prominent. Also, I really appreciate a picture on the podcast thumbnail providing a visual representation of the topic. The date was never bad, but I like this change. So what you're seeing a lot now, this will factor also into review change and the podcast thumbnail, meaning the Easy Allies podcast. We refer to that as the same. You know, when we want to talk about Frame Trap, we say Frame Trap, Easy Anime. But when we talk about the Easy Allies podcast, we just call it the podcast. So yeah, we switched up our thumbs a little bit, and we're making changes recently. Because when we first started Easy Allies, we changed things from game trailers for various reasons. One was, legal concerns over us continuing something directly that we were doing previously, game trailers. One was just, obviously there's lots of reasons we talked about why we pick stars for our reviews, but a lot of it had to do with just changing it up, just having a different identity here at Easy Allies. And I think you might be seeing kind of the repercussions of some of that, us maybe going back on some of the things that we did before, because we've gone through a 1-2 year process of experimentation with that, and we've decided that maybe it was kind of a knee-jerk reaction to change something, or times have changed, and we're much like we were in 2016 and 2018. We're now looking at industry trends, and we're looking at other channels and seeing what they're doing, and trying to figure out if this was something that was worth it for us. To specifically talk about the podcast, when we used to do GT Time had names on YouTube for each of the episodes, and like we do now, had a visual representation via a screenshot or art or something about one topic that was brought up during the podcast. We're really sure if that was responsible for any of the growth that we had experienced at Easy Allies. We didn't know. We looked at other podcasts. I believe John Bain was one that we looked at when we first launched, where I believe he just does dates. So he's like, I just do a podcast and here's the date. Like, you either tune into my show or you don't. Like, you're either into what I do or you're not. Like, I don't necessarily need to sell that as a specific type of... It's like, I don't need to sell that to viewers to maybe say, you should maybe watch this one episode, but you don't need to watch this episode. We hope that all of our fans of Easy Allies watch all of the episodes of the Easy Allies podcast, if that's something that they want to watch. But as is the case with experimentation over time, it's something that we had enough recommendations from people who wanted to see that. They wanted to see names, and they wanted to have a little sense of what the podcast was going to be about before they watched it. And so this is as much a decision to move in that direction and appreciating the benefits that will bring to informing people about the podcast and to selling it to people that might not know about the podcast. But it is also an experimentation as much as the test was when we first started Easy Allies, with just going to with the date format. It's also kind of nice and clean. You looked at a lot of the other thumbs that we put up for various shows, and you would see the podcast, and it's, another week, another podcast. And so it was kind of nice shifting to that style. And also a style shift is moving if this, widescreen image is the thumbnail, we had our title over here. We had our title on this side. It was a vertical, so you had to turn your head a little bit to read what was going on. And visually, we liked that. We experimented with all sorts of stuff. It's always fascinating when a thumbnail test goes through Slack, because it just eats Slack. Like, it just takes up the whole thing. And so I'll just be, nothing beats being out in the world doing something, and then I'll just check my phone, and it's like 85 updates on Slack. Like, oh no. And it's like, oh, they're just looking at thumbnails. Okay, fine. But just visually, obviously, reading left to right versus up and down is easier in the English language. And I think it looks a little bit better as far as separating the actual image. I think just horizontally just kind of frames everything better. But for some people, vertical versus horizontal doesn't really matter. And so that's just something that when you see a change from us visually, that's not us always 100% saying, well, this is the right way to do it. It's just us saying we've done something the other way for a long time. We've gotten positive comments about that, negative comments about that, just like we do everything. And we've decided that maybe it's the time for a change. 2-year anniversary is coming up. It was something that we discussed in January and something that we wanted to roll out and see how it goes. So if you don't like those thumbnails for a very specific reason, again, sending us a message that says, I don't like them, they're ugly, will not really get you that far. But if you want to compare and contrast the two styles and talk about why you like one over the other, that's why we made the change, to figure out whether we like it as well. And we do. I do like the new style, and I do like, just title-wise, I think it visually looks better. So we will see for year 3 of operation, going up to our 3rd anniversary, whether there will be another change in thumbnails. Morgan Mohala, let's talk finances. Last week, a question came up about the money and how it gets spent. I think that question comes up every week. I know it is not a comfortable topic, I'm comfortable. Here, let me get more comfortable talking about this. But hopefully you'll consider it. If the allies have a surplus from the monthly Patreon pledges, where does it go? Into that month's production plan, into a safety net fund, corporate bonuses, equipment, Legos, corporate bonuses. Corporate bonuses. Are you spending your resources in a way that prevents a surplus? While I do trust you and the allies, would you ever consider using an independent third party to regulate financial decisions? Possibly when you get to a certain size. What makes you so above scrutiny, if not? Not above scrutiny. We have a third party. I wouldn't necessarily call it a independent third party because that third party is Amanda. She helps out with our finances, and our accountants that work with Amanda and myself on our personal finances. We check in with them every now and then and say, like, here's what we've spent, here's what we've kept. There is not much of a surplus. We spend everything. All of that money goes into the salaries of Easy Allies, and then some of that money is already set aside for, again, additional salary expenses for some of the allies and for costs. You know, the anniversary, it costs money, so we had to put money away. And so even though there was a quote-unquote surplus for the month of November, December, January, February, meaning money that we were okay not giving ourselves, but we're okay putting toward something else. But yeah, not a month goes by that not absolutely every penny is budgeted for something. And so there's nothing, we're not even remotely close to hitting a point where it's like, whoa, look at all this money here. That might happen in the future. One easy way for that to happen is a sponsorship. Is if something, we get a big fat sponsorship for something that exceeds the expenses that went into that specific sponsorship. And then that is an investment that we can take and spend on something else. But again, that's not money that we're just going to put in the bank and sit on forever. That's going to be money that's going to go into a new camera. That's going to go into, maybe like lav mics or new lights or something, that we always talked about, or a studio potentially. Rick Hogue is probably cringing with me throwing around terms like surplus and corporate bonuses, but so I don't know if I'm negating what officially would be the business term of a surplus. But to me, a surplus would mean money that we got that we had not planned to get, or we always consider every avenue with in terms of finances, but just money that would come in, just like, hey, look at all that money, and that is yet to happen. We are obviously thrilled every single time we start up a new month, and we maintain our 40 to 42K plateau. But would you ever consider using an independent third party to regulate financial decisions? Totally. We currently are in the process of incorporating, and I plan, once all of that goes through, to bring in somebody to replace Amanda, to be somebody that we would pay, so that will be an additional financial charge, but somebody that just handles the finances. And then that will not necessarily bring in somebody to regulate financial decisions, but I guess you could think of that in terms of regulation. But whereas now we're a little fast and loose as in terms of things that we want to buy. There's some last minute financial decisions that we are making right now in terms of the concert that weren't necessarily planned in January. But what was planned in January is to put a little bit extra money aside in case some of these decisions are made at the last minute. We're like, whoa, somebody run out and spend $100 on that thing. So that will have to be done a little further in advance. That's not something that I can just go to Amanda and be like, hey, we have an extra $200 in the account, right? Good, because we're gonna need to spend that. Obviously that would need to be put forth a little earlier, because this won't be somebody that is in my house hanging out. This will be somebody that we'll have to work with in advance, and be a little more frugal, a little more careful when it comes to those financial decisions in the future. So yeah, Morgan, that is something that we considered. Ulf himself, talk to me about Broken Arrow and why it's the greatest 90s action movie? The greatest 90s action movie. What's the greatest 90s action movie? Chat, let me know. I don't know. It's not Broken Arrow. There was an I've seen Broken Arrow though. I remember Broken Arrow. Broken Arrow's great. John Cryer, one of the great. I believe John Cryer is in it. Is John Cryer in it? Maybe I'm thinking of what's his butt? Oh, what is his name? He was in Better Off Dead and Say Anything. John Cusack. Thinking of John Cusack, not John Cryer. T2 was 80s. T2 was not 90s, I think. T2 was like 89, wasn't it? Die Hard was 80s. I know, everyone's like, There are so many great action movies. Aliens, Terminator, like, those were 80s. RoboCop was the 80s. Die Hard with a Vengeance? Okay. Die Hard with a Vengeance, I think. I hated Die Hard with a Die Hard with a Vengeance is... Wait. No, wait. What's Die Hard 3? That's not... Die Hard with a Vengeance was 4, right? Crimson Tide. Ooh, Crimson Tide. T2 is 90. Just made it. Thank you. Con Air, not good. GoldenEye, very good. The Matrix, very good. The Matrix and GoldenEye and Terminator 2 are better than Broken Arrow, unfortunately. I have issues with Terminator 2. It is a better film than Broken Arrow. But Broken Arrow is great. I will fulfill half of this comment, and I will talk to you about Broken Arrow. Broken Arrow is a film starring John Travolta and Christian Slater, where John Travolta crashes a B-2 bomber and steals the nuclear weapon inside. The term Broken Arrow is denotes when a plane with nuclear capabilities goes missing or is unaccounted for. Is a broken arrow, and thus bringing about the line from The Rock. Yeah, The Rock. Yeah, is Die Hard 3? Is Matrix 2000? Oh, I don't know. I thought Matrix was 90s. Die Hard with a Vengeance is Die Hard 3. Okay, I really hated Die Hard with a Vengeance when I first saw it, but that movie's grown on me. But yeah, after Die Hard 1 and 2, I thought that was a very strange film. Matrix is 1999. Okay, there we go. Bad Boys. Yeah, I'm a Bad Boys 2 fan myself. But, and so Christian Slater's, and the opening scene of Broken Arrow, he's boxing, I think, with Travolta. I've only seen this movie once. This is pretty cool that I recall all this stuff. And so in the end, of course, he gets another boxing match with Travolta. And the big deal is Travolta's bigger, he's older. They're both in the military. He's got more military expertise. But it's just, you know, it's kind of like The Rock, where it's one of those things where somebody on the inside, somebody who is in law enforcement or is in the military or the government, goes rogue. And I remember the big tagline from Broken Arrow is Christian Slater is duking it out with John Travolta, and he says, "You're crazy." And John Travolta says, "Yeah, ain't it cool?" That's Broken Arrow for you. I think Broken Arrow might have dropped out of the top 5 action films of 1990 with that line of dialogue. It might have been that. But I'm trying to remember. Yeah, it's a big train finale. I'm trying to remember other sequences. Who's like the park ranger? There's a blonde park ranger that like meets up with Christian Slater. Broken Arrow is kind of cool because it's like a big hike, actually. I think they go like hiking a lot. There's like a lot of like canyon shots of them just kind of like walking through the desert. Face Off is better than Broken Arrow, I think. Face Off has some legitimate. I always forget the name of this person. I want to say Laura Dern, but it's not Laura Dern. What is the name of this actress who's in Face Off, who plays his wife? I always forget her name. But she is Speed. We're going to talk about Speed later on in the show. Later on in Cup of Jones, but let's move on. Joshua McVeigh, I've been subscribed since day 1. Thank you, Joshua. And I've grappled several times with formatting a Cup of Jones question for you that addressed many concerns I've had with the handling of various shows, the lack of timeliness on reviews, wavering enthusiasm for certain games or genres, and a handful of other things that have been bothering me about EZA a year ago. Well, unfortunately for us both, EZA has been excellent lately, and as such, the critiques that I've been struggling to articulate are no longer valid! We did it! We did it! John Woo directed Broken Arrow, and pretty much every other film he's done is better. There we go. I didn't know John Woo did Broken Arrow. There was like, The Rock led to like a whole string. It was like The Rock, Con Air, Broken Arrow, Face Off. I mean, I know a lot of those are John Woo's, but it's a really interesting period in the 90s of just some really out there, wacky. Fun to see John Travolta as a villain. I think that's one of the things I enjoyed about that. Certainly much better than Horizon Battlefield or whatever the set movie that he made, Battlefield Earth. Nobody's helping me with the actress that's in. That's not the mouse. It's the other mouse. Rush Hour doesn't age well. The Rush Hour series, oof. I mean, entertaining, the two of them, but like, woo! That is a racist film franchise. I mean, I know it's supposed to be, but like some of those jokes, whew. And I say that having just watched this movie a couple months ago. So we're great. So don't have to worry about this comment. So instead, for my first Cup of Jones submission, I'd like to ask how you feel about living in California. California. As a born and raised San Diegan, I had to get out of Dodge when the cost of living just kept skyrocketing. I miss some things about the Golden State, like Comic-Con, Yosemite National Park. Yes. Yes. And Disneyland, but survival comes first. If things got too hard to handle in California, is it feasible that the Allies could successfully move out of state and still produce content? Totally. I mean, you wouldn't get group streams anymore. We would have to probably, like Tuesday night would be maybe like multiplayer night, where one person would stream and then us through a service that was able to show all of our different screens, or possibly jumping in on Skype, or just, being there in chat. But yeah, we could totally do it. It would be different. Easy Allies, definitely. But you'd be much. All the podcasts would probably just be audio, because it'd be difficult for us to get together. Maybe we would have a Patreon podcast here that would buy us all a plane ticket to go somewhere else and visit all of each other. But yeah, I'm born and raised in Southern California. I lived in Boston for 4 years when I went to school in Boston. Went to Emerson College. Really wanted to go to USC. It's going to be funny that we're going to be at USC on Sunday. But tried to get into USC film, tried to get into USC acting. Didn't happen either way. And I've just loved Southern California. Sneeze coming on. Maybe I can let it go. Wait. Is it going to pass? Ooh, it might pass. I think it passed. Breathe out your mouth. Let the sneeze go. There it goes. But love California. But could totally find myself living maybe up in Seattle, up north, especially as the planet gets hotter and hotter. It's tempting to move up north. There are definitely some summer days where I'm in Southern California, like, oh man, I don't know if I can do this for much longer. USC is tremendously hard to get into on an arts basis. Yeah, the acting audition that I did for USC is one of the worst auditions I've ever done in my entire life. They made me do Shakespeare. I had to do a classical monologue, and so I learned a Shakespeare monologue. And didn't do as much research on it as I probably should have, because they were throwing questions at me I didn't have answers for. But yeah, we could move out of state. It is something that I've considered. I totally understand the cost of living. I'm very fortunate to have sold a company and then bought a house with the money that I got from. And then we're lucky enough to be able to use that premises to produce Easy Allies. But yeah, I totally understand. I've had many friends that have moved out of the state. I've had some friends that have moved out of the state and then moved back later when things worked better financially. But have had lots of people that I've known that have moved out just because financially it's not working out. Not only is California expensive, LA is super expensive. I think San Francisco beats LA a little bit as far as the crazy cost of living. But yeah, totally understand. Probably just blow my nose. Talk amongst yourselves. Just get it out of the way. Oh. There we go. I'm back. Everything's better. Let's just take a break. Let's just take a little sip from the cup. Tony Bartos says USC was too expensive even though I just got in. Just ouch. Daniel Rona. We got a huge comment in this episode. Daniel Rona's got a big one, not a huge one. I was curious if there are any notable unpopular opinions amongst the Allies. Are you kidding? Yes! I vaguely recall Huber at one point mentioning that Super Mario 64 is not as good as people say. Not sure if that was in jest or not. And while you all clearly have an extreme reverence for Lightning, there aren't many Final Fantasy XIII fans. There aren't many Final Fantasy XIII fans. Personally, as someone who has many opinions considered unpopular, I was curious to see which, if any, allies had similar experiences. Yeah, that's Easy Allies, baby. That's like the name, is we get along even though we know about these things. Yeah, allies say things that we don't disagree with. We just talked about it there. I mean, I don't think Bloodborne was the best game released the year it was released. I thought that game was clearly Witcher 3. I think Witcher 3 takes Bloodborne out back and beats the crap out of it. But, and I say that not only because, I'm clearly hurt, but the people that were on the Bloodborne side have been very also antagonistic about The Witcher 3. So yeah, that's you're talking about the fuel, the lifeblood of Easy Allies. I mean, that is the test. The petri dish of Easy Allies goes on, meaning that we want to experiment with trying to see how long we can keep this thing going. Trying to see how long we can keep a comfortable work environment, how we can work together creatively and find opportunities, not to not mention this stuff, not to be well, I know you disagree with that game. I know you think that Captain Toad Treasure Tracker is a platformer. I know, Kyle, that you hold to that opinion, and that's fine. I mean, you can have that opinion. You're wrong, but can Kyle still have that opinion? Can Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, much like it did? See, we managed to stay away from it. If you watch the Nintendo reactions, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker was brought up, and none of us said the word puzzle game. None of us at the table brought that up. None of us, dug in, poke at Kyle. That's the test every time. It's like, can we not mention it, and can we be civil? If we need to mention it, can we be civil in mentioning it? If something is said to us, if Ian, say on the podcast 3 weeks ago, reiterated the fact that he thinks Witcher 3 has bad combat, not just combat he doesn't like, straight up, look it up in the dictionary, bad combat, then can I just, keep that inside and move on and be respectful? So yeah, that's it. Are there any notable unpopular opinions amongst the allies? Oh yeah. I mean, I consider you don't need to agree with a lot of my crazy Disney opinions. I think Lion King's going to be super weird. I think they shouldn't have done a sequel / reboot or whatever the heck this Mary Poppins movie is. I don't like the fact that Frozen is getting the most attention of any Disney property I've ever seen in my entire life. You get a musical. Hyperion Theater, you get one Frozen musical. Broadway, you get another Frozen musical. We have a show over here already running doing a Frozen musical, but you also, Frozen musical. I think right now there are 3 separate Frozen live action shows running concurrently at Disneyland. It's insane. But I love it. But if somebody's like, hey, I like Frozen, like, great. That's awesome. If you watch Frozen with your kids and they love it, fantastic. Or if you enjoyed it yourself, that spoke to you on an emotional level, you're not wrong. That's my opinion. You have your opinion. We all have our different opinions. Great. P.S. Regarding the sell me on it, I didn't mean that to come across as aggressive as you read it. It was more of a, I've heard this is good and I want to watch it. Would you convince me? Yes. Daniel Rona had the question about Batman the Animated Series, I believe, before. Or just Batman in general. P.P.S. And for that reason, this is his own, we're getting, and for that reason, submitted to Cuppa Jones. Love and Respect is now bleeding over. Love and Respect, the Q&A portion of the Easy Allies podcast, not Love and Respect, the concept. And for that reason, I know the manager too. Staycation. Your family needs to go on holiday, but without $1 to your name, you need to grift yourself a room, amenities, and anything else you can at Le Grand Hotel. Hitman-style world with an intricate machine of NPCs and items to locate, to interact with, to achieve your goals. Love it. You had me at Hitman-style world, and for that reason, I'm in. So Frozen is like the COD, Assassin's Creed, FIFA, Madden of pop culture routine, yet still a juggernaut. Yep. And I can't believe that Frozen 2 is coming, and it's taken them this long to work on Frozen 2. M-Bun, testament to Jones's hesitation to universally recommend stuff. I'm that guy who doesn't like Inside. So if you didn't tune in last week, I said I'm nervous to universally recommend stuff. One thing I can universally recommend is Inside. M-Bun didn't like Inside. I also played Limbo years before. I have not, FYI, played Limbo. And didn't like that either. I have my reasons, won't go into them unless asked to. Somebody did ask him in comments, I believe he said he's just not generally a fan of linear games like that. But yeah, I agree with Jones that very little is universally recommendable. I go through the same struggle when people ask me generic anime recommendations. So my recommendation of Inside was not done in a way, I might have said this last week, and I will correct myself if I did. It's not done in a way where it's like, you better like this. I mean, I recommend Inside because it's good, and you'll like it. I recommend Inside because, to me, the cost versus the risk of you liking it is okay. I'm comfortable with that. If you buy Inside and play Inside and don't like it, I'm still glad you played it. I'm still glad you checked it out. If I was in person with someone, if M-Bun was in front of me and I said, have you played Inside? You'd like it. And they're like, well, I played Limbo and I hated that. I'd be like, then don't play Inside. And that's how that conversation would have gone. Andy Zolkeefly, when are you guys going to do a group stream of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds or Fortnite where everyone plays at the same time? Can you do that? I guess you can do that. As compared to I know you can do like squads of 2 or 4, but like, can you get 9 people in? Can we get Dawn playing Fortnite? It'll be great to see how you guys work as a team. I mean, Huber has to keep on saying Uneasy Alliance every single time when talking about a certain game. I've enjoyed watching Ian and Ben playing PUBG on one of the Easy Update episodes, and Huber has become obsessed with Fortnite. It will be a great entertainment to see the team in a single match, especially if one of the allies tends to mess up for the team. I see where this is going. But, yeah, let me take the last page. Put it aside like I do. Write that down as a takeaway. PUBG Fortnite group stream. You can always get a little army together. $5 or above. Patreon.com/EasyAllies. Group stream selection committee. Make it happen. But I hear you. I think one of the major notes that I'm getting, one of the major comments from the community, one of the things that people they want is more group stuff, more just all of us getting together and playing games, not all of us getting together and creating podcasts. Loud and clear. Alexander Zirianov, on March 10th, 2016 at 10:23 p.m. Pacific time, 7 of you tweeted an image with the date 3/21/2016. If it's not a secret, why did you pick this moment to announce the release date of Easy Allies? Also, can you tell us what was happening between that moment and March 21st? Early on, the day was picked, I believe that was a Monday. Was that a Tuesday? That 3/21? That original 3/21? We wanted Tuesdays to be the day. We wanted to have a day. That was one of the suggestions. That was one of the things that I still am proud of myself for doing, suggestions right off the bat and saying, no matter what we do, no matter what size we are, no matter how much money we have coming in, no matter how many shows we're producing or what individual roles all of the allies have in continuing this thing called Easy Allies, we're going to meet once a day and we're going to group stream. So even if Easy Allies right now dropped from $41K to $41, let's say, then we would still group stream. Every Tuesday night, you could still tune in and we would group stream. We just wouldn't be on a couch. I thought, even that would be below the couch. We'd sell the couch. But we wouldn't be doing retros anymore. We would be doing reviews. So that's an interesting version of Easy Allies, but it was a version that we were anticipating and we were like, okay, if that was going to happen. And I believe the post went up on 3/19. I believe 3/21 was, or maybe that was a Monday that we did that? That was a Monday. Okay, 3/21 was originally a Monday. So we knew Tuesday night was going to be our group stream. So we're like, if we put the update on a Sunday night, so then Sunday night, everybody will see that. We'll have the announcement. We'll say tune in Monday for the big Monday live stream. Then Monday at noon, I believe, we started our live stream, kicking everything off. We didn't even have our couch yet. We were just kind of standing around in this room, facing that way, like we used to do. And then we knew the following Tuesday would be kind of the beginning of what is now the Easy Allies work week. You know, Cup of Jones starts on Tuesday morning, or group streams Tuesday night, and then we do the rest of our shows throughout the week. We also do stuff on Monday, but to me, Tuesday's when I do all our shopping, fill up the fridge, run any errands that I need to run, take care of a lot of business stuff. So I knew Tuesdays was going to be a big day. That was like Easy A day. And we didn't want to do a 12-hour stream and then shoot the podcast. So we're like, let's do this the long 12-hour stream on Monday. Then Tuesday will be the first, Tuesday. I don't think I did the first Cup of Jones until the week after. But that Tuesday night was our first group stream. And so, yeah, announce Sunday, stream Monday, start Easy Allies on Tuesday. And specifically March 21st, I think was just the earliest we could do that. We looked at the calendar, we're like, I think that was the week following or something. Because even though a lot of people are like, wow, you snapped right back around as Easy Allies from Game Trailers, it felt like forever. Dominic Brown, quick question for you, Jones. Have you in any way followed the development of Yondir Simulator? I have not. I've watched it now. I know the game wouldn't be your thing per se, but over the years, it's like watching blood, sweat, and pixels happen in real time, complete with thrills, twists, and excitement. I'd at least watch one of the guy's update videos. So yeah, the Yondir Simulator is anime-esque. It's an interesting concept. It's one of those concepts where I was like, oh, that's interesting, and the more I watched it, I was like, yeah, I don't know if we need this game. You are a girl in high school who's obsessed with a guy, and you are literally eliminating the competition so that nobody else can like that guy. And you have to worry about people hating you in school or people turning you in. But you're a kid at school murdering other kids in school in secret. And that's... Yeah. Blah. I did watch the latest update video, and the guy who's developing this does some spectacular update videos. He posts footage from other games where he has similarities. He drew similarities to Hitman and other school simulators, and talked about little modes that he's adding, and it's really interesting. I think one of the things that is fascinating in a review process is there's all these little notes that don't necessarily make it into the review, because when you want to bring up something in a review, you want to try to fill a couple paragraphs with it. You want to bring up a concept that you can attach other little notes to, so you can say the game, the combat is really great, or the robots in Horizon Zero Dawn are great, and then you can dig up all of your little notes for when you said the robots were fun to fight against, and then lump that into that thing. Where there are a lot of notes that are just kind of floaty, wispy things on the wind that are like, yeah, that's an interesting point about the game, that one little tiny point, but so random to bring it up in a review, didn't really affect my score, which is kind of a fun thing I noticed. Watching this video for Yondir Simulator, watching the latest the blog post, basically, where little development update, felt like a bunch of these little notes, little tiny things. You can tag a person and follow them throughout the school, and I was like, oh, obviously that would come in handy, and so it's interesting having developers add stuff like that. Because that stuff like that comes up a lot in reviews and doesn't necessarily make the final video. But have not followed development, finally saw it. Yandere Simulator, if you want to go check that out yourself. Aurelien Grenier, do you think there will be a moment when you will not have any more questions in Cup of Jones? No. And if that moment comes, Cup of Jones will likely not be a show anymore. I don't know. I think this is pretty... We usually have like 10. I think we got 10. We always have the same amount of questions every single time. Yeah, 10 pages. It's going to be another hour-and-a-half episode. No, it doesn't... I thought it would have gotten less. I thought I'd get like 8, but no. David Ashley Pearson, have you ever used the Negcon controller by Namco for the PS1? Phenomenal oddity with its analog twist steering and deep analog buttons. Way ahead of its time, coming out in 1995, and still up there with the best controllers ever, along with SNES and GameCube. Side question, do you have a favorite controller? Love and respect from Scotland. My favorite controller currently is the PS4 controller. That baby is great. And so great that I'm actually not a huge fan of the Xbox controller. The Xbox controller has kept me from playing a lot of games on Xbox. Not exclusive games. It's not like I'm going to be playing Sea of Thieves being like, these shoulder buttons. But like, I don't like those shoulder buttons. They're really hard and not fun to like rest your fingers on. And not a fan. I'd actually think I like the Switch Pro controller more than the Xbox controller. Back before I believe we made the swap to Defy Media, I think one of the last top 10s we did at Viacom with game trailers was the top 10 controllers. And it was fun because we got to sit down and pair up with another, I always called them ally. They were an ally, lowercase ally back in the day, but Elise Willems said some fun things about that. And GameCube controller was up there, way higher than some people thought, way lower than other people thought. But I've never used the Negcon controller. That sounds fascinating. Everybody look that up. Zachary Diabramo, I'm the opposite. I prefer the Xbox One controller over the PS4. There you go. We all got our faves. Logan Taz, what are some of your favorite and least favorite box arts in gaming? Likewise, has a box art ever persuaded or dissuaded you to try a game out? Yeah, not since like the 90s. Maybe back in the day when I was buying something for Super Nintendo and I would see like Zombies Ate My Neighbors, like, whoa, or like, I'm trying to think. I think that had like a bunch of people screaming on it, and like the circles. It kind of looked like an old 50s sci-fi horror film cover. Yeah, the only box art that comes to mind is I really like the box art that's based on like Contra and Metal Gear, that's like based on like Predator and like Aliens. I like box art that's like, you're like, wait a minute, is that Mr. T? You're like, wait a minute. Like, there was one that somebody found that was Lando and Han, or it was like, they had like a Han Solo picture that was clearly Han Solo, and then like Lando was in the background or something. It's always fun when somebody points those out, and you can literally like do a picture in picture and be like, you're totally right. That is exactly that image. Like, they did not even try. And like now, no way you could do that. No way you could do that. Like, put up box art where you're just like, yeah, I just borrowed this art from this, action movie from Expendables 3. I just literally traced over it and gave a guy mohawk instead. Couldn't get away with that now. Parasite Paladin, I have faith I don't need to give you a setup for this question for you to understand it. I was confused for 2 seconds, Logan, Parasite, but then I got caught up and I listened to both of them and oof. I'm curious to see how chat talk about. DeBramo. DeBramo is the correct pronunciation. Zachary DeBramo, got it. Though if you need to do a quick lookup, that's okay too. Vampire Killer or Bloody Tears? Which is better? Which do you like more? Vampire Killer or Bloody Tears? To fill everybody in, Vampire Killer and Bloody Tears are two pieces of music written for the Castlevania franchise. Vampire Killer premiered with the very first Castlevania. Oh yeah, it's so good, Vampire Killer. But then he got Bloody Tears. What's better? I don't know. I listened to Vampire Killer. I put on Vampire Killer first and was like, oh, it's Vampire Killer. Oh, Vampire Killer's so good. And then I put on Bloody Tears and I was like, ooh, Bloody Tears is so good. I think Bloody Tears is gonna win by an inch. Yeah, photo finish. Bloody Tears over Vampire Killer. And I think the reason why because I think Bloody Tears sounds more genre specific. I think Bloody Tears, there's more, it evolves more as you bring it into an orchestral version or if like a metal band covers it. I think there's more layers to be explored within Bloody Tears. And Bloody Tears sounds to me more like horror, more just classic horror. I mean, I get they're both pretty upbeat, modern songs written in the 80s, but Vampire Killer sounds more like a video game theme to me. A damn good one, which is why Bloody Tears just edges it out just a little bit. But I'm curious, Vampire Killer, some game news. Vampire Killer all day, Dominic Brown. Vampire Killer is also a whip Belmont uses, nice. Just say, oh yeah, I'll chance with me with Bloody Tears. People are still talking about the Xbox controller. VJ Junkie, I know you guys are all adults with developed tastes and interests, but do you ever worry that, at times, you and the other allies might be too set in your ways? Yes. Or do you actually see that you guys make a concerted effort to branch out and try different things? You guys are basically split up into the JRPG guys, the Zelda guy, the racing guy, the horror guy, and the open world guy, and the quirky guy, Kyle. I love like, we all knew who these people were, but if you said the quirky guy, I'd be like, the quirky guy? But would you like to see people swap it up a little? I get that there are a number of pros and cons in both methods, and that people review what they want to review, but just wanted your opinion. With reviews, I'm never going to force someone to review something, so that's not going to happen. I want people to be cozy with that. I want, Brad Ellis and Ben Moore and Daniel Bloodworth and Mike Huber writing about things they know about. I get that there are a number of pros and cons of both methods. I know that Ben seems to branch out the most. But what about the rest? Yeah, that's something that we could do. I think that's more of a recommendation to all of the allies and not something that needs to be enforced. That's not something that I'm going to get, difficult about. Yeah, that's something, of course, making a concerted effort to branch out will benefit Easy Allies all the time. There's no question. So yeah, that is something that we need to do. VJ Junkie, the corporate sponsor stuff in GT getting bought out translates to Wayne's World as well. This is true. It's Easy Allies. It's excellent. We talked about Wayne's World last week because I'm living Wayne's World, and as much as I watched Wayne's World back in the day, I never realized it. A couple questions. I've seen you and Brienne Miss Movies comment on each other's posts on Twitter previously. She's currently working with Collider and the Schmodown. Do you know about the show, and would you or anyone in Easy A be interested in taking part of it? Game shows terrify me. No, I was on, and it's it's funny too because I think I've been able to control my potential frustrations and anger when I deal with some of the other allies. When they say something that I know I disagree with, I'm just kind of like, okay, all right, I'll keep that bottled up. But I can't remember what it was. I would love to maybe do an editorial on this later and just kind of double down on it. But I was on Game Fights, which is I was on Game Fights because I used to work with Matt Robb at what's that company called? Defy Media. And they do, of course, Movie Fights, which is now back, which went on a little bit of a hiatus. Screen Junkies put that together, and they also produced Game Fights because it was a natural fit. They do Movie Fights, they also did Game Fights. And I was on that with Mike from Hello, Warp Zone, and with another colleague who I had never previously worked with before. And some of the stuff brought up during Game Fights, I was like, what? Like, and not like, oh, I don't agree that that's good, but like, that doesn't even fit genre. Oh, it was like, what's the best voice actor in video games? And they said Mark Hamill is the Joker? And I'm like, that's not a video game thing. Hamill didn't create Joker for video games. That's not, if you were to ask people like, what's a good, it'd be like David Hayter as Solid Snake, like you'd pick somebody that originated a role in video games, but like Joker won. I was like, then what, you know, then Marlon Brando as the Godfather. That's the best because he was in that game, right? There you go. That's the best voiceover. It's like, come on. But yeah, game shows are terrifying, and also because it's hard for me to bottle those emotions. Apart from that, one of their Patreon tiers is to watch behind the scenes videos. Have you ever considered doing behind the scenes videos for Easy A shows, setting up the streams, the podcast, tabletop escapades, etc.? Anyway, I hope it's not too intrusive, but I saw you two talking before on Twitter, and it got my mind working. Yeah, Brienne is Miss Movies, MISSMOVIES on Twitter. Give her a follow; she's wonderful. And I've been on her. She has a podcast called Film Therapy that I was on previously, and have also been on her other podcasts. I've been on with she lives close by, so love collaborating with her. But let me behind the scenes. Yeah, behind the scenes stuff is tough because it's not something that initially sounds interesting to us, but of course that would be interesting for people that don't know. Blood chiming in. It's funny that I get pegged as the racing guy in that previous comment. I'm the only one who's been reviewing them, but clearly not all I play. Hey, you're also the Far Cry Ubisoft guy. I mean, I'm reviewing Far Cry. Blood ain't reviewing Far Cry. Counterpoint, the only 10 you've ever given was to a racing game. Yeah, and I mean, I obviously played more stuff than open world games. I'm also like the build guy, you know, the shooter guy. Diamond Crusader, the MMO guy. Question, are video games virtual boot camps for mass shooters? No, the answer to that is too obvious. Okay, do you actually believe Diamond Crusader? I love whenever I think of Diamond Crusader, I think of like the sharpness of diamonds, and that's Diamond Crusader. Diamond is these questions. They got an edge to them. Okay, do you actually believe AAA publishers complaining to gamers that games cost too much, while at the same time they tell their shareholders how much effing profit they make off of their incredible AAA games live services experience? Oh, do you actually believe AAA publishers complaining to gamers that games cost too much, while at the same time they tell their shareholders how much profit they make? Do I believe them? Yeah. Games cost... I don't really know if there's a way to frame that games cost too much. Games cost less here than they do in some countries. Games cost more here than they do in other countries. Games have not like inflated at all. We were still paying $60 for the same type of content, the same type of entertainment. Which is why you're seeing, companies like Microsoft kind of experimenting with their exclusives, saying if you give us $10, $15 a month, you can get anything that's exclusive to the Xbox included. I think that's, I don't believe them. I don't think games cost too much. But that can be tricky, and I don't think when you talk about economics in games prices, you have to give specific examples. I don't think you can just say across the board. I've played games that I've never given a cent to that I felt were clearly deserved some money being thrown at it, but I never did. So Question 2 and update 2 on Horizon Zero Dawn. I finished the main story and the Frozen Wilds. Final score 7.0. It can't even scratch Breath of the Wild. Do you think Horizon Zero Dawn has a chance to ever get into the Hall of Greats? I think every video game in existence has a chance to get into the Hall of Greats, depending on how long the Hall of Greats exists for. But definitely. Matt Brookbank, whoa! Jones just casually dropping writing of a sci-fi pilot. I've mentioned writing stuff before. I'm writing all sorts of stuff. That's a pretty slick move, Jones. I know you said it isn't an easy A thing, but come on, details please. Anything you can share? Yeah, I'm a big Quantum Leap fan. So it's got Quantum Leap vibes. It's that kind of vibe where every episode you got some characters coming back, but a whole different vibe. You know, different costumes, different potential time period. But that's all I'm saying. It's tough. Easy Allies is really great. I'm so fortunate to be a part of Easy Allies. I'm fortunate to be here talking to all of you, having you still tuning in week after week, to have people still donating to us month after month. And it's a hard thing to not walk away from. Whoa, not going to use that terminology. It's a hard thing to step away from periodically to work on something creative that will not benefit Easy Allies. Typically, if I'm going to step away from working on Easy Allies, I'm going to do that to play video games or just to socialize with my friends and family. But being in this garage, having all of those game consoles just ready and waiting, and again, stepping away and working on a solo creative project is very, very difficult. But yeah, I'm working on all sorts of stuff. One thing that I'm working on that I will tell everybody about, because there's no way I'm making that, but it is fun. I'm working on to help sate the curiosity about that. I'm working on a pilot for an X-Men show, because we're talking about rebooting the X-Men. Because the X-Men series is so weird. Like, the movie series has done some fun stuff, and now we're getting into a lot of X-Men television. Legion, I thought, was a really good show. Runaways is apparently really great. What was the other one? What was the Outsiders? There's one with the guy from True Blood where he was like running away with his family. I don't know what that is. But so there are all of these other explorations with X-Men, and it's like, how about we get the X-Men as a TV show? Let's go back to the beginning. Let's get Cyclops and X. Let's have Professor X not be British. Let's try that on again. Let's have Hank not be blue, but not be like the same age as all the other kids. Let's have him be the same age as Professor X, but have them be older. Let's have Bobby be real young, like he is in the comics. Let's not have Bobby and Cyclops be this, or Bobby and what's Cyclops' name? Scott. Let's have them not be the same age. Let's take the relationship between Scott and Jean and like experience it for longer than an hour and a half. Let's like really get into that. The whole concept. One thing that they never got into ever in the films is the fact that Jean can read Scott's mind. Imagine being in that relationship where you can't lie ever. You can never surprise your spouse with a present. You can never drop a surprise birthday party on him. You can't. I just think those characters are so fascinating. I think before Wolverine was introduced into the mix, I still think there's enough to talk about. I think it'd be really interesting to do a prequel television show leading up to the events, leading up to that first comic cover. If you go and you look up the original X-Men, the very first comic cover, it's Professor X being like, X-Men, come into my office. And they're all like, woohoo! And they all come flying in. I think Iceman's doing like a pole dance. He's got like a pole made of ice, and he's like, whee! And he's swinging in. But it's Beast, Jean, Angel, Cyclops, and Iceman, Beast, Cyclops, Jean Grey, and Angel. And that's your X-Men. That was the original X-Men. No Wolverine, no Storm, not till later. But working on that show. I'm writing that as an example of like, look, I wrote this thing, but not like, I'm pitching this to Netflix. Like, no. Zachary Walton, I recently became infatuated with theme park history with the help of a surprisingly large theme park history community on YouTube. Disney parks have been of particular interest, especially to the transition from the Walt era to the Eisner era and now the Iger era. What I find interesting, however, about all of this is that Disney parks are becoming less and less appealing to me. I see all these videos of rides full of imagination that were wholly unique to the park, and now it seems that the parks are being taken over by film IP. I think that what got me the most was, the Maelstrom, a ride at Epcot I loved, which was about Norwegians. They're my people. I loved the Maelstrom, or loved being replaced by a Frozen ride. So again, back to Frozen. There was one really scary part of that ride I remember, because it was funny going through like, welcome to Norway. It was weird. It was weird being on a Disney ride that's like, here's this culture. It kind of reminded me of like in Futurama, I think it's like one of the first, it's definitely in the first season. I think it's like the third or fourth episode of Futurama where they go to the moon and Fry goes on a ride that guesses at what Earth was like so many years ago, and they get most of the things wrong. And so it's Fry going on this being like, what? That's not what that is. And so it's fascinating. I wonder if you're like actually from Norway and you go in the Maelstrom, the Norwegian ride, and you're like, huh? Like there's a part about trolls at one point. Like trolls are very, not internet trolls, but like actual like underneath a bridge trolls, I guess, are a very important part in the legacy of Norway. You like went through a magical forest, and you're like, interesting. Like right after you go through the part about like, chopping trees down, the lumber industry, and then it's like, and trolls and magic, like as you do in Norway. But there was a part that was really scary actually on the Maelstrom, where like you dropped down into a room where you were like on an oil rig out in the middle of the ocean. And so they had like an oil rig, and then they had the painting around the room of oil rigs and stuff like that in the distance. They just talked about the oil industry in Norway. And it was spooky because it was a dark room, and there was dark water. You know me and dark water. And the painting, when you try that on rides, it's pretty miss when you like, and the room ends there, but it keeps going in this painting. You're like, whatever, it doesn't, whoa, whalers on the moon. But the room was just dark enough that they kind of pulled off that effect, like the point where the water hit the wall. They put the horizon right there, and it was an interesting illusion and just creepy to come into that room of full of dark water. I would not have been able to stand in that room even if the water just came up to my waist. I would have been too terrified. Just dark water, just woof. But I hear you. One thing, Zachary, that's kind of disenfranchising me with theme parks as of late is I think video is taking over a little too much. I'm really, really curious to see what the Star Wars ride is going to be like in Anaheim whenever I'm available to go on it. I think the line for that is going to be pretty insane. But one sign to me of like the beginning of the end of real crazy creativity with rides was the Despicable Me ride at Universal. I don't know if that ride exists in Florida or what it's like, but they added a Despicable Me ride here in Hollywood, and it's not great. It's just kind of like a movie that they shake your chair to. Like I could get just as much fun out of literally a guy behind me in a chair just wobbling it back and forth. Just the whole idea of when you go on like even the Transformers ride or the Harry Potter ride, the context behind like why you're here and what you're doing and what the car is and what's happening on the ride and the problems leading up to you getting on the ride and how you resolve that moving forward. I think it's really different, the different Harry Potter rides. The Forbidden Journey, Forbidden Journey? Yeah, maybe. Which is a really great ride. It just completely shatters the believability of like what's going on, like what, like it's kind of like Star Tours. You're like, there's a fourth Death Star. What's happening? But so yeah, the digitalization of these rides is frustrating. I like that a lot of work is being done in projection. Now that we have 4K projectors, they added a lot of subtle changes to rides at Disneyland that I thought were really cool. Some old rides got a lot of little visual touch-ups and flair. But I'm nervous that in the future it's like, no, you just make a screen and then you put them in a thing and then you wiggle them. Ride's over. That like we've lost that concept of like, no, you need to see this. Like we need to like make a big warehouse and put you inside of it so you can look at all this crazy stuff going on. I remember when Tim Burton was asked while he was shooting Sleepy Hollow why he did so many practical effects, and they asked him this while he was on set, and he just looked around the set and he was like, look around you, like, isn't this cool? Aren't you enjoying this? How can you ask that question? So yeah, that upsets me that we're kind of moving away from practical effects. Oh, sorry. So in essence, do you think Disney parks are losing the spark of magic that made the park so unique as they pursue attractions based on Marvel, Star Wars, and whatever else is the zeitgeist in the moment? Is there room at Disney parks for timeless attractions that aren't tied to any particular IP? That is a trend, obviously, that we're moving away from. I probably will not see a lot of that in the future. At the same time, I guess what you have to appreciate is the use of new technology to bring these new IPs to life. And you never know, you're just like, it's just a bunch of Marvel and a bunch of Star Wars. Imagine if you're a Star Wars fan. You gotta be so excited. Like, it's pretty I saw a fly-through of the Star Wars land that they're building, and like, I'm really curious to see that thing come together. I did not grow up a big Marvel fan. I was a Spider-Man fan and an X-Men fan when I was a kid, but like I didn't read Luke Cage, I didn't read Jessica Jones, I didn't read Daredevil, and so I've definitely become more of a Marvel fan as that series has gotten more saturated. Cars is not my favorite film franchise, but it was fascinating to see the Cars world translated into a theme park environment, and so. I hear you. I think I'm on both sides. I think I'm just sitting there on the fence. Joe Ellis, I don't watch too many streams due to time, but I do watch all of EZA's produced content. Mwah, Joe Ellis. Such as reviews and the like. If you guys weren't streaming, would you be able to put more time into produced shows? Or does streaming not really take up that much time in the larger picture, as you'd be playing most of these games regardless? I in no way want you to stop streaming, as I'm sure many of the allies can't get enough of it. I just wonder if you have any stats or what overall gets more views. Our produced content definitely gets more views. There definitely is we're seeing a huge wave of sentiment from the what I would consider really inside the EZA community and outside people that just enjoy Easy Allies. I just watch your reviews and I watch a podcast every now and then, but I'm not like into Easy Allies. I don't support you financially. I don't follow you on Twitter. I just kind of check in every now and then. So yeah, our produced stuff definitely gets more views, but keep in mind, streaming stuff carries a lot of benefits, much more than just producing videos that we want to get views for, driving the financial interest of Easy Allies in streaming. Just rattling off the top of my head, a lot of these games we wouldn't get a chance to play just personally. So when Game of the Year comes around, we can at least have a frame of reference on some of the games that we stream. We wouldn't get a chance to cover this because it's not something we want to don't skip, and it's not something that is preview or review worthy in our opinion, as far as just looking at our busy schedules. Not review and preview worthy in general, but just amongst the production schedule of Easy Allies. And one thing too that doesn't get brought up a lot when we talk about streaming is a chance, much like now, is a chance for us to communicate and get in touch with our audience directly. That scrolling chat is a big deal for us. That is, I think, one of the paramount differences between Easy Allies and Game Trailers. At Game Trailers, I was beholden to my bosses. I was beholden to doing a specific type of job in a specific type of way for a specific type of person or people, and trying to satisfy them and trying to meet particular goals. And so back at Game Trailers, whenever I streamed something, it was purely a luxury. Like, I did not stream at Game Trailers because I did not do Toy Box Tuesday as a business decision. Toy Box Tuesday was me and my obsession with that game. I didn't even do Toy Box Tuesday to win any kind of favor within Disney. Like, I don't think I got to be involved in Disney that much because I was doing Toy Box Tuesday. I just was infatuated with that game. And so now I'm infatuated with all of you. This community is just one of the most fascinating things I've ever experienced in my career in doing films and theater and everything. It is an interaction that I think a lot of people miss out on. And I think one thing that I've been thinking about lately is not only the level of celebrity that we have here at Easy Allies, but the type of celebrity. You know, you look at the Oscars just happened, and the Oscars are this opportunity for people like Jordan Peele, who wins Best Original Screenplay for Get Out. And Jordan Peele already has like a 3 or 4 film deal with the company. I do not know off the top of my head that released Get Out, and so there's going to be like 2 or 3 more horror films coming from Jordan Peele, which I absolutely cannot wait for. Which, boy, talk about pressure! You got to like release another horror film after Get Out. But I'm sure now that this man has won an Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay that he has all sorts of opportunities. But like the way that he's looking at his career right now is, you know, and especially if you're an actor or writer or director or producer, is you look at each project like, okay, what can I then leapfrog off of this to do something else? And so you have to take these opportunities as these launch pads that you're just kind of like in Finding Nemo when they're bouncing on the jellyfish, you know, just kind of like moving from one thing to the next to get through this crazy world and this crazy industry. And what you all have given us is Jordan Peele, a subscriber now. What you all have given us is this kind of like day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, year-to-year constant, I want to say plateau, because that could potentially be a negative word, like cushion of celebrity. That I wake up every morning and Easy Allies is in the same place. You know, like I don't have to. Obviously, E3 is big for us. Obviously, our anniversary this weekend is going to be big for us. Obviously, we have big events, but nothing really hinges on those events to take us to a point where we need to get or the whole thing fails. And that's always frustrated me with this industry, with sentiment towards particular franchises or artists. That's always frustrated me with the stock market, where like Apple stock goes down, you know, a percent, and everybody's like, well, bail, you know. So it's like this idea that if you are any less as good as you were yesterday, I'm out. That you constantly, a lot of people are like, you know, oh, they're not growing, they got to get to 50. It was like, well, then do we have to get to 60 and then 70 and then 80 and then 90? Like, do we constantly have to grow? I mean, obviously it's our fiduciary duty to, but I like, there's something to be said about maintaining. There's something to be said about checking in with your wonderful community, growing, learning from them, changing, obviously, growing, obviously, but not growing out of a desperation, not growing because you're taking huge risks. And that's the thing. That's why Disneyland is not building new IP for their rides. That's why you're not going to see a ride like Alien Encounter, which wasn't based on anything. It was just Imagineers going nuts. I actually have a friend of mine who's interviewing to be an Imagineer. I'll never forget when I first heard of the word Imagineer. I was like, Imagine what? They're like, yeah, it's my job. That's what it says on my business card. I was like, what? My buddy Carlo, I noticed that a lot of YouTubers and podcasts get sponsorships from a lot of different companies like Blue Apron, MeUndies, Squarespace, etc. Have you looked into getting sponsorships from companies like this? I feel as though if the financial incentive is significant enough, this may help you get to your studio goal. It could. It's something that we've talked about. I think the big difference is we're curious to have our sponsorship through the podcast be directly tied to our Patreon. We wanted the podcast sponsors to be at a specific level, to be via the Patreon. So we don't want to bring in other sponsors that potentially have more value. We don't want Rick Hoag's in there. We don't want we don't want Rick Hoag to be like, oh, it's MeUndies now, is it? You know, is the head of Rick Hoag. One of the other reasons too is a lot of times that you see, and I'm not, you know, thumbing my nose at this, but a lot of times when you see these brands, especially when you boot up Stitcher and listen to the podcast, you're just like, wow, Squarespace is everywhere. It's because when you go to a bigger company, when you are like, hey, we're a new podcast, and we have been approached by people like this several times, where they're like, I will take care of all your ad stuff. You don't have to worry about it. I will come in, I will give you, ad breaks, I will give you the language that they want you to say, and I will get you those ads. So we will essentially be working with through a third party to try to get these most popular, sponsors that you typically hear from over and over, so that those sponsors work with that company who then works with us. The issue is that we would be beholden to the way that they do things, the language that they use, the way that it's incorporated into the shows, and we would basically have to get rid of our $500 tier and the lovely Rick Hogan and try to figure out another thing that they should sponsor. And it's a big complicated process, and it's something that that we kind of moved out of, or kind of prevented ourselves from doing with the way that we set up sponsors when we first started Easy Allies. But I love our sponsors. I wouldn't give up Mango for the world. And so I do like things being the way that they are, and based on our viewership, based on how many downloads the podcast gets, based on how many subscribers that we have on YouTube, based on our current reach of Easy Allies, I don't know if bringing in a Blue Apron, a MeUndies, a Squarespace, bringing in these third-party ad getters would necessarily bring us in more money at the cost of considering the cost of potentially like our fans not being into like, where'd Elthanis go, and just like, oh, we're doing our sponsorships differently. That might take a morale hit. I don't know. But what we're looking for now, most specifically, are like feature sponsors. So the idea that we do at E3, we do some Comic-Con coverage, we do something, that coverage is brought to you by a sponsor. So whether that's Blue Apron or Sharp or something, I don't know. We will see. Josh Reed, I recently when people have the last name Reed, R-E-A-D, is it Josh Red? Is it Josh Reed? Riyadh? I say Reed because that's how I read it. I recently rewatched your Cup of Jones from May 23rd, 2016, featuring a walk around of the Easy A garage, and found it a nice little blast from the past. Any chance you can do another one of these tour videos, considering the setup is quite a bit different now? Yeah, we kind of did that. I guess the reason I haven't done that is because Ian did the easy update video where we were building, what was it, like, I like 75. What was the meter joke? Where we showed a little bit behind the scenes of like what went into building stuff. But we just talked about, I got behind the scenes on my takeaways right there. So yeah, behind the scenes videos or something. We got two votes for it now. So we will definitely consider that. Kian Jerome, I've got 2 questions for you. First, if you had to change the name of Easy A to something else, what would it be? If you had to change it to something, what would it be? Simple Friends. Simple Friends. That's terrible. Simple Friends, that's bad. I'm going with it. Simple Friends. And second, what's something you would change about one of your favorite movies? Getting back to Speed. Speed really frustrates me because Speed is one of those movies. It's like Independence Day. Speed and Independence Day came out relatively close to each other, and they both frustrate me because they are both really good, potentially. They're really interesting setups. The plot of Speed is fascinating, and I like a lot of the humor in Speed. I just think if you just tweak a couple things, if you just take some of the character jokes back, if you dial it back a little bit, cans, it was just cans. If you take some of these moments out and make them a little more serious, look at the way like Die Hard did humor, and maybe don't do kind of the showboaty jokey stuff, and maybe make the humor a little more practical. I thought Dennis Hopper was written very strangely as a villain, and obviously the Independence Day once they like plug a Mac laptop into a UFO, Independence Day just completely just dissolves away. But like the thing about Roland Emmerich, Dean Devlin films from the 90s is they all started so good. The first 20 minutes of every Roland Emmerich film is the best. They're really, really good. Dean Devlin is in the film Real Genius, by the way. He's one of the nerds in Real Genius. But yeah, Independence Day and Speed, I would just make them... I would make them not... I can't... The thing about Independence Day, too, I would probably change Independence Day more than I would change Speed. The problem with Independence Day is, like, the thing, too... Oh, man. Okay, we gotta go through this, because this is, like, the biggest problem in the movie, for me, is... Because everybody's like, they plugged a Mac laptop into a UFO to upload a virus. That's not believable. Let's take it back. Let's go back to the scene where Jeff Goldblum originally gets the idea. Where his father, played by Judd Hirsch, picks him up off the floor and says, "Get off the floor, you'll catch a cold." And that line makes Jeff Goldblum think of the concept of a virus. Oh, I'd get a cold, you mean I'd get a virus? Wait a minute! What if we planted a virus into the UFO? Judd Hirsch does not give him an idea of how to implement that virus. He doesn't give him an idea of what type of virus to add. Jeff Goldblum, one of the smartest men in this movie, when going through the motions of trying to think of a way to get into the alien architecture and shut down their computer systems from the inside, never once considers a virus. Ever. What is he thinking of? Is this scientist, this computer tech guy, is only thinking of, like, what, military options? Like, what is going on in his head when he's thinking of what to do? Like, I don't know, I could take a paper clip and, like, jam it into a small circle, maybe? Maybe I, like, shut it off and then turn it back on again. Maybe I throw rocks at it. Like, it takes his dad to bring up the common cold for him to be like, oh, a virus. That to me was the most insulting thing. Not the plan that he put into place, but why he thought of it. Why he was, oh. So dumb. So dumb. Tim Beshin, what are your thoughts on Dick Grayson as Batman? I really like him. And especially the dynamic with Damian as Robin. Yeah, I'm not super caught up with Batman right now, but I'm familiar with Dick Grayson as Batman, and I dig it. I really like the any steps taken to age Batman. And I don't mean age Batman as in aging Bruce Wayne, the character, but aging that world. Saying that, like, we have to have, this has got to keep going. Batman's got to retire at some point. It'd be really bold for DC to just finally, even in, like, reboots and stuff like that, be like, we're done with Bruce. He's gone. But yeah, it makes me think, as long as we're talking about Jones' creative writing, I wrote a treatment. I didn't finish it, but I wrote down all the story beats for all sorts of Batman stuff. And one idea that I wanted to do I've always been attracted by the idea, because every time they make a Batman movie, it's always like this take on Batman, Gotham by Gaslight. What if Batman was in, Victorian London? What if it was this villain? What if it was like Doom? What was the one where they found Batman's secret recipe for taking out all of the Justice League and they put it into place? I think it's called Doom. It's definitely not called Doomsday. But just like, what if there was another dimension and they found it and the Justice League was mean? It's always like, what if? And especially with Batman stories, what if Batman fought Dracula? And I would love to just have an animated film that was just Golden Age. It was just like, what if everybody? What if Batman and Robin and Batgirl and Nightwing fought every single Batman villain all at the same time? What if we crammed every single Batman character, the cops, like we go to Arkham, we go everything's in it. Just if it's in the Batman world, we cram it in. And maybe that would be too much for one movie. It might be fun if it was like a limited series on Netflix or something. But I once conceived of such a series, and I had a scene in it where the Riddler finds out Bruce Wayne is Batman, and the Riddler goes to Wayne Tower, goes to Bruce's office. And Bruce comes into his office, and the door locks, and he's like, what? And there's Riddler. And Riddler's like, I got you. And he's like, I finally figured it out. The greatest riddle of all time. I know you're Batman. And Bruce hits has either on his keychain or underneath the desk or something, but like hits the panic button, and Batgirl gets it. And at the time in this series, this is when Dick left. So he has not become Nightwing yet. Or I think he is Nightwing, but he's never been Nightwing in Gotham. He just like leaves. And but Batgirl's around, and Jason's dead, so it's now Tim Drake as Robin. And Barbara and Tim are Batgirl and Robin, and they're working with Batman. And so Batgirl gets is currently is on the phone with Dick Grayson when she sees the alert go off, and she's like, Bruce is in trouble, and he's apparently in trouble in gotta tell this story faster. Come on, Jones. He's basically in trouble in his office. She brings up a camera. She sees that the Riddler's in there, and she's holding Bruce at gunpoint. And she's like, oh no, I gotta go stop. I gotta go stop him. Oh, and she can hear what he's saying, and so oh no, Riddler found out that Bruce is Batman. And she tells Dick Grayson, who's now a grown man, and tells him, oh no, we have to go rescue him. And Dick Grayson says, wait a minute, I have an idea. And cut back to the office. Bruce is, still trying to talk down Riddler. And then Batman shows up. And Batman comes flying in through the window, knocks out Riddler, takes the gun, cuffs him, throws him into Arkham. And Riddler's like, wait a minute, like that can't be, because I had Batman, but that can't be Batman. And so he's telling everybody at Arkham, like, it was Batman, I'm telling you, Bruce Wayne's Batman. They're like, we don't believe you, because we've seen Batman do other things. We've seen Batman and Bruce in the same place at the same time. And so when Batman shows up and he knocks Riddler out, so Riddler's on the floor unconscious, tied up, or maybe the police come in and take him away, and Bruce walks up to Batman and is like, who is this? Because he hasn't seen Dick in years. And I thought that would be an interesting moment of like Dick Grayson grown up in the bat suit, like returning, basically the prodigal son coming home and returning to Bruce. I thought that would be a neat moment of Bruce, whoa, being like, yeah, I can't tell you what to do anymore because you're Batman now. Basically, like just in that one moment. I thought that would be interesting. So yeah, not to talk about myself too much and my creative nonsense, but for that reason, I'm in. That's why I like the concept of him being Batman. I've always been a fan when other people pick up the cape and cowl. I love that. That it feeds into what's long been said about Batman. What Batman Begins is largely about, the concept of Batman as an image, as a symbol, and not necessarily just a man. Morgan Mohala with 2 questions. And then Cellar Moore has a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraph comment coming up. What are your thoughts on the violent video game reel presented by the White House when members of the video game industry were invited to discuss the issue of violence in media with the president? IGN posted this. You can Google it. Just IGN, Trump, video game violence. To discuss the issue of violence in media with the president. It's included at the bottom if you haven't seen it. Oh, and Morgan also posted it. Fair? Unfair? Warrants action? What will you decide if you were somehow given say over the type of content allowed into video games? What would you decide if you were somehow given say over the type of content allowed into video games? I would not make blanketed comments about what type of content should be included in video games. How about that? That's my first step. I wouldn't say none of this. I would say it's a case-by-case basis. I would give my 2 cents, but I want to hear what you think about it worrying about what the audience wants to hear from you. I'm not worried about what audience hears from me, specifically on the terms of video game violence. If you haven't seen it, it's a lot of COD. There's a lot of COD in there. There's the airport scene from Modern Warfare 2 where they're murdering where you're not supposed to, but you can murder innocents at the airport. Where you're not supposed to ethically, but where he throws the knife at the end of Modern Warfare 1 and hits the guy in the forehead. We're like, spoilers. And a lot of like headshots, a lot of some abuse against women. I think it was like Left 4 Dead or something, where he's like chasing a girl around and hitting her, which is weird, which is like not necessarily how you play that game. Just everything requires context. I do not see and have never seen a causality, a link between just specifically video games, where like people watch The Sopranos and they're like, oh well, that was a great episode where that person got decapitated. Good night, honey. And like they're fine. Whereas like I'm playing this cartoonish Fortnite game where I destroy something and it blows up in a puff of smoke, and then I immediately go from that and shoot up a school. So like it does not make sense to me. I think other countries are exposed to a lot of extreme violent content, and I think a lot of other industries. I've been reading people doing horrible things to people in Stephen King novels since I was like 8, and I think it did not affect me because of the upbringing that I got, because of the way I was raised by my peers, the way I was raised by my parents, the way I was raised by the wonderful educational institutions that I went to. And so I think it's not only a sense of people being educated, obviously, that these things are wrong. Obviously, they're wrong. You commit a crime in Grand Theft Auto, the cops come after you. So if you commit a crime in real life, cops are going to come after you. So if you do that and you're like, well, I didn't know cops are going to come after me. And so I think it's a case-by-case basis. And I think the thing that's wrong about this video that was shown that really doesn't make it, all it shows you is potentially how gory games can get. It doesn't show you why you're doing any of this. It doesn't show you the difference between the moments that they're showing in this video that are required of the player. You cannot beat this level unless you act this way, versus you don't have to do the behavior that they're doing in this video. They're just doing that for some strange reason. Like they're just using this opportunity to act in a particularly gruesome way. When you watch 40 violent things right next to each other, the video game industry seems like the worst thing ever. We were talking about Limbo earlier. There's some extremely violent moments in Limbo. It's a small child getting murdered in that game. But it's context. It's the way it's presented. It's an adventure. It's the way, Obviously, if you watch The Goonies, they're horrible. There are periods where each of those kids in The Goonies are at death's door at a moment's notice. Where you slip on that rock, you hit your head in the wrong place, you're dead. And like, what if Goonies ended that way? Whoa, But does it mean, why are we watching this film about these kids being terrorized? It's like, it's everything in context. And so, yeah, I think if you just watch like headshot, 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 it'll affect you, but that's not games. Sell Armor. Day one patron, first time commenter here. I'm usually content to just give you guys money in exchange for the great content you produce, but I feel strongly enough about this subject that I want to say something. Multiple allies, including you, Jones, have claimed that they intentionally withhold nominating the games they feel are most deserving of the Hall of Greats for fear that they would not be inducted. I strongly feel that not only is this behavior antithetical to the very concept of a Hall of Fame greats, but that it severely hurts the quality of one of your most entertaining streams. To this first point, imagine if NBA writers intentionally didn't nominate Magic Johnson in the first several years of his eligibility because there were limited slots and they knew Jordan and Kareem would get in before him. While I understand that it could be frustrating to potentially see a game like Final Fantasy VI not be inducted, what I don't think you're considering is that the only thing worse than being nominated and not being inducted is not being nominated in the first place. Not only does not nominating a game you feel is deserving a disservice to that game, but it's also defeatist. If you truly believe in the greatness of a game, you should nominate and defend it proudly. Let the game stand on its own merit, rather than trying to wait for favorable conditions to sneak it into the Hall of Greats. Had you nominated Final Fantasy VI in the previous stream, it likely would have been inducted. You don't know that. You don't know. I'm going to stop and correct you right there. You have no idea. No idea if that would have gotten included. That's not, yeah. A lot of, you're bringing up some good points there. That point I strongly disagree with. Instead, we live in a world where Pokemon Red Blue made it into the Hall of Greats before Final Fantasy VI did. Well, then there you go. Why is Pokemon Red Blue such a worse game than Final Fantasy VI? I love Pokemon Red Blue. That game affected me very emotionally. It's responsible for one of the favorite pieces of video content I have produced in my career as a video game journalist. Finally, the Hall of Greats streams would be far more entertaining if the outcome wasn't predetermined. Because of the aforementioned strategies, the viewers already know the top 2 games before the voting, or even before the stream if the nominations leak. At most, there are 3 games in contention that are a clear cut above the others. I want to see a pantheon of truly great, deserving games duke it out. I want the voting to come down to the wire. I want to see incredible games not make the cut. All of this has happened. Your concerns are a bit confusing to me, I gotta be honest. Not knowing beforehand what games make it in this far, make it in is far more exciting than watching everyone vote for Chrono Trigger because no one brought any real competition. I know I've written a lot, but I really look forward to the Hall of Greats stream every 3 months, and I think changing your and other allies' approach to nominations would make an already great stream that much better. I think it's a little late to make these changes before tonight, but it is good food for thought. I gotta say though, Celamore, you're kind of bouncing all over the place. You're like, you should only recommend the games that you think are deserving of Hall of Greats. Well, Don brings a game he thinks is deserving of Hall of Greats every single time, and he loses every single time. Chrono Trigger made it in because Don didn't bring Civ 1. You know, so should Don change his stuff? Because it seems like Don is doing what you want him to do and not doing what you want him to do at the same time. It's weird. It's like, you know, you're making the argument that if something makes it into Hall of Greats, that somehow carries less weight than something being nominated. That's kind of like what I got from you, is that the reason that I didn't suggest Final Fantasy VI was I brought in World of Warcraft, expecting it to be an easy in, and bringing a game that I was extremely passionate about, and it didn't make it in. And I have never brought a game to Hall of Greats that I have not felt does not belong in Hall of Greats. So that'll never happen. Like the eliminations that you're making, I'm trying to think that there was some word that you picked for the term of something being ignored. You know, it's like if you bring something, you know, if you bring something that's not worthy and then it doesn't get in, then you're shafting all of these other games. But it's like, I'm not bringing Final Fantasy VI tonight. I'm not bringing Half-Life 2 tonight. I'm not bringing World of Warcraft tonight. You know, it's like there's so many amazing games. I'm not bringing Journey tonight. All of those games are also getting shafted, I guess. I guess I'm screwing all of those games by not bringing them. And I expect that some people are going to see my entry tonight and be like, oh, come on, Jones. But it is. One of the games I'm bringing tonight, the game I'm bringing tonight is one of the greatest video games ever created. You cannot say it's not. The game I'm bringing tonight is not if you do not consider the game I'm bringing tonight to being one of the greatest games of all time, then you're viewing Hall of Greats literally as a popularity contest. And you're literally like, well, I didn't play that game growing up, and well, it's just not relevant. You know, it's I see the point you're making, but I'm really into the popular, exciting games that they keep making sequels of. You're like, all right, you know what I mean? I think the very nature of Hall of Greats is problematic. I think it is virtually impossible to do Hall of Greats in a way that will please everybody, to bring suggestions that will please everybody, to have winners that will please everybody. Disappointment, sadness, getting burnt, that's what Hall of Greats is all about. The Hall of Greats itself, the actual games being inducted, once a game is in there and the Hall of Greats stands, I think should stand with a a sense of reverence. I think that's something that we should all agree with. I think all of us agree that those are great games. I don't think any of us agrees that something that made it into there is not a Hall of Great because we all voted for them. But the process itself is going to be bloody. There's no way we can do it that will give service to all games that should be. I know how you feel, because when Brad brought up Chrono Trigger, I was like, oh, well, fine. Because I knew this crew, I knew this group, I knew Chrono Trigger is not making it out of this room without getting into Hall of Greats. And so I think it's a little bit, I think if we completely took out the gaming of the judges, knowing who's in that room, who's going to vote for what, I think every award show under the sun has to consider that, like, who is going to be voting for this. And I think we need to consider that, and I think that would be doing a grand disservice to our audience, to the people who watch us do, if you just tune into Hall of Greats and we're all just like, hello, welcome to Hall of Greats. We will not be passionate. We will not pick games. We will not pick games that we think would cause some kind of reaction or that we could do some fun presentation for. We will only be talking about the merits of this game and only picking the greatest games. And then if that game does not get in, we will be immediately reverting back to that game and trying again. That also does not sound like a stream. That also kind of sounds quote unquote predetermined. And from our perspective on the inside producing Hall of Greats, you saying that, I mean, we know what games are going to win before you vote on them. How are we supposed to prevent that? We don't know. We don't know. There's no way to know what other games people are going to bring in. We want to keep that secret. Otherwise, we would preload what games we're going to bring. We'd pre-prepare our arguments against certain game. I like those things being live. And so it's a tough thing to quote unquote fix. I've gotten lots of notes on Hall of Greats over the years, some of the stuff that we've implemented. Obviously, you can expect each episode to be a little different than the last because we will be making slight changes moving forward. But so I will take your comment to heart, even though I consider it just a little bit confusing. But I certainly appreciate, as a first-time commenter, the long drawn out. Not long drawn out. That's terrible. That's a negative. That's derogatory. Your extended comment update on how you feel Hall of Greats is going. Thank you. Bjornar Haraldsvik, is this the Enter the Matrix TV spot you made? This dude getting knocked over, is that you? If you go into the post, patreon.com/easyallies, you go into the last, the March 6th post for Cup of Jones. Bjornar Haraldsvik was kind enough to find someone that grabbed my TV spot and put it up on their channel. That is the Enter the Matrix TV spot that I made in that link, and yes, that is me getting knocked over, and that is my dad's old building. That's where he used to work. And everybody at the end, where you see people kind of leaning out of the hallway to look at the commotion going on, none of those are actors. Those are all people that kindly helped me out with the shoot. Those are all accountants stopping their job. Being like, we'll be in a video. Matt Kurlowski. Oh, no. Kurlowski? Oh, no. I know you pronounce Matt Kurlowski. I think it's Kurlowski. I don't know. I think it's just Kurlowski. Matt Kurlowski. I think that Y I was adding, it's Kurylowski, and I think I was adding the pronunciation on the Y that was unnecessary. I think it's just Matt Kurlowski. Please. The recent Academy Awards got me thinking about La La Land from last year's awards. I've never been to LA, and I'm not formally a fan of musicals, but this movie is easily one of my favorites over the past 2 years. Not sure if it's because I like the director's work, Whiplash is phenomenal too, the music, so many great songs, and enjoying it as a musician, the cinematography and use of color, or the misdirection of the movie as a whole, career versus romance and love. What do you think of it? I haven't seen it. What's your perspective on it living in LA and being married to an actress? I don't know. I haven't seen it. Sorry I didn't see it. I got to admit, I don't want to talk down to this film because I haven't seen it, but I did get a lot of reviews from people that are musical theater fans, or just musical fans. A lot of them liked it. A lot of people didn't for a reason. A lot of my friends did not like La La Land for a reason that I'm going to state now, that is a reason that I typically stay away from Greatest Showman, La La Land, stuff like that. And that is that and I don't want this to seem hoity-toity. I don't want this to seem like, well, I appreciate the fine arts, which is why I have not watched La La Land, because it does not hold up to my expectations. But I'm a musical theater guy. I came from musical theater training. I came from seeing people that are musically trained, that can sing and dance, that are trained to do so. Not trained over like half a year, trained since birth. Trained since they realized they wanted to be a performer in the art of dancing or singing or acting on stage, acting while singing then acting, then singing, then acting. and how difficult that is. I remember doing a musical. I did Assassins, which is a Sondheim musical about the Assassins, about John Wilkes Booth and Oswald and everybody. And the man who played John Wilkes Booth when we did it was could sing the role, but was typically an actor, meaning did not do musicals. Mostly did straight plays and films and stuff like that. And I remember when we were in rehearsal, he asked, and we all kind of looked at him like, yes. He asked, does anybody recommend any good books about musical theater acting? Because I haven't done that yet. I have a lot of experience working on stage, but I don't have a lot of experience working in musicals, like singing a thing and acting, because the notes are like, you're going to do this. And you might be like, I want to go over here emotionally. And that might be, two opposite directions. And so it's a trade. It's a skill. It's something you wouldn't want somebody doing, a root canal on you that learned to be a dentist 5 months before. You'd want the best. You'd want to get the absolute best person to do your laser corrected surgery on your eyesight. You'd want to get the absolute best contractor to work on building your house. You'd want to get the absolute best lawyer incorporating your company. Wink. You'd want to get the best people that working on the thing to make it the best thing. And in musicals and film, you're like, nah, just get Ryan Gosling. It's like, nah. Let's just get Emma Stone. It's like, why get someone who went to school for this? Let's just get Ryan Gosling and have him kind of sing it. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in seeing the 6-month-old contractor licensed guy build a house. Screw that house, So I'm saying that not having seen La La Land. La La Land might be wonderful. I heard it's a wonderful celebration of the arts, of the time period, of just the concept of weighing how much focus that you give on your career, how much focus you give on your art, how much focus you give on your friends. Obviously something I can sympathize with and deal with on a day-to-day basis. But for that reason, seeing these films and just being like, oh god, just Les Mis was the greatest thing. It's like, what if we did Les Mis but cast it with non-musical people? And that's just the weirdest thing for me. What if we did a martial arts film and cast people who didn't fight well? You're like, well, interesting. Yeah. I'd love to see Jackie Chan in a movie with people who don't stage combat. That'd be great. What if we did a movie about bicyclists that can't bike? Elliot Moscow. I'm not making fun of you, Matt Kurlowski. I love that you love that, and I will never make fun of somebody for loving something. And Whiplash was great, so I'm curious to see that. But that's what just kind of takes me out of that stuff. Elliot Moscow. I left this comment in the Hall of Greats patrons thread asking for votes for or against allies being able to vote for their own submission, and I'm really interested in your view. Apologies if you have answered a similar comment before. I know there is a decent level of debate around Hall of Greats induction process. I like keeping that in, probably for one selfish reason, Elliot Moscow. Again, the ability for people to vote on their own. So if they come in and suggest a game and then it comes down to voting, you can vote on your game if you want, get it into Hall of Greats, or you cannot. I would like to bring something up that I will pat myself in the back, thank you very much, that I have done. I think only in one instance have I voted for the game I brought for Hall of Greats to give it the 3-point vote, to give it the first place. That's the number one game. I typically come into Hall of Greats with a game that I'm very passionate about, but somebody else brings up like Super Metroid or something, and I'm like, well, yeah, Super Metroid's a better game than the game I brought. And for that reason, I like to keep that stuff in. I like that idea, that moral quandary of you really putting your money where your votes are, where it's like, I mean, are you going to give yourself 3 votes just to make yourself feel better, or are you even going to vote for it at all? Did you potentially get to the point where you could vote, where you're like, no, actually 3 people brought games that I consider better than my game. I think allies voting for their own submission is a secondary issue. I enjoy these streams very much for the presentations and the interplay between allies. However, for me, if the allies are able to champion any game of their choosing for merits they must persuade the other allies are irrefutably great, then the cross-examination needs to be stronger to separate the submissions. As I remember from previous streams, the allies are not aware of each other's submission until they are presented, which only allows the duration of the presentation to formulate questions, criticisms, and arguments against it. That's correct. As allies do not have to adhere to an agreed set of criteria for their game selection, it would make sense to me to give the other allies advance notice of the selections to enable a decent level of rigor. The decent level of rigor you're talking about can be manipulated by allies and will. I mean, you don't think Damiani is going to come preloaded with some really nasty stuff? In the cross-examination and us, the viewers, a clear indication of the strengths and weaknesses of each submission, depending on the course, of course, on the quality of the presentation and rebuttal. That's all you get. You get that time. That's it. I'm sorry. It's not... When we do the Olympics, we're not like, okay, so you do this initial run, and then if you don't do well in that run, you can get another run in, and then if you do that run well, then we'll give you credit for that. But even if you like hurt yourself during that, then next Tuesday we'll come back, we'll try this again. This is it. The guy's gonna shoot that gun. You gotta run to that spot, and you gotta run as fast as you can. I don't care what you had for breakfast. I don't care what your mom said to you before you raced this. I don't care what the terms are. Now is your shot. If this game is that good, you shouldn't have a problem pitching it to people. You shouldn't have. If someone with poor oratory skills is pitching a great game, I'm sorry. Then maybe pass that off to another ally who's better at pitching games. But when I see some allies come in and they're like, oh yeah, I didn't write anything, and I didn't produce a video, but like, here's my game. It's like, sorry, it could be a great game, but clearly you're not that passionate about it. Finally, bearing in mind this is the Hall of Greats, if the allies are given free reign to select their submission based on their own sense of what greatness is, I believe there should be a minimum number of votes cast for a submission to achieve true EZA greatness and entry given to the Hall of Greats. Yes, that does mean that on occasion only one or perhaps no entries will be inducted. I would be down with that if we did it like every week or every month, but we do it every 3 months, so it would suck to go like 6 months and have nothing be inducted into the Hall of Greats, but that is an interesting take. I got to admit, I am surprised at the intense level of scrutiny the Hall of Greats is getting. I mean, this was presented as something fun that we could do every now and then. I mean, something obviously that we talk about all the time, comparing this game to that game. And we used to do top 10 countdowns at Game Trailers. We do not do them currently at Easy Allies, and so this kind of does scratch that itch. But the seriousness, the level of intensity that these comments are presented with is surprising to me, because I thought this would be something that was like, oh yeah, Hall of Greats, oh, that game made it in, okay, I'll see you next week. And people are like, I am astonished that Hall of Greats is not being performed with the level of seriousness, and that there's any kind of rule set. Like all of these suggestions for rules are fascinating, and they would definitely change Hall of Greats into something else, whether that could potentially be better or worse than Hall of Greats is now. But I don't envision constantly chipping away at Hall of Greats, constantly making changes to produce the perfect version of Hall of Greats. No matter what safeguards you have in place, no matter how you do voting, Hall of Greats is going to get ugly. Hall of Greats is going to create enemies for a few fleeting moments, and then of course we'll shake and kiss and make up when everything's over. But there's got to be a bite to it. There's got to be a little bit of an edge. And I think taking away all of these safeguards, even though some of this does sound pretty brutal, actually, stuff potentially not making it in. I trust my fellow allies in that. I don't think they would ever bring something to Hall of Greats that they think is jokey. Obviously, Don brings in some deep cuts that whenever Don suggests a game, you're like, whoa, that's a long shot. But I would not change for the world how we do, how each allies approaches Hall of Greats currently. Obviously, I want them to put as much work into it as possible, but I'm not going to prepare a video tonight. I certainly have a lot to say about the game that I'm going to talk about, but as someone who edits a lot of Easy Allies videos, I've yet to produce a video for Hall of Greats. Lewis Sandiford, bring back First 15, please. It's evergreen content, loved by so many, that doesn't take long to film. Could get one shot sometime on a Tuesday. It could be edited over the weekend. We could have one released every week with a different pairing of allies each week. Put that on takeaways. Something to look forward to. EZA's main strength is having a large staff for such a small outlet, but instead of leaning into this advantage, we get a ton of single-person streams that honestly, the data says people aren't interested in. Sorry to be blunt. Please be blunt. If time constraints mean losing out on a few hours of streams a week to get the edit done, I think most would agree that it's a worthy trade-off. I got nothing to say. That's a great point. Oh, there we go. Page 9. One comment left. And we're approaching 2 hours, so... This episode seemed to fly by for me. I don't know if all of you feel the same. People seem to be like voting cam, which is something that we added. And again, that's I feel okay about not implementing a lot of these big changes that people are suggesting for hologrades, considering them, but potentially not implementing them right away, because we have been evolving the Hall of Grades. As you've been watching Hologrades, it has changed over time. We have made little changes, some based on fan feedback, some based on our own personal concerns with how the show operates. Final comment. I was wondering if there has been any talk of Easy Allies doing a more comedy-focused, scripted show. The old mandatory updates with Ian and Elise were some of my favorite videos from GT. I really miss seeing this side of everyone's personalities, and the occasional Easy Update skit doesn't quite fill that void. However, I understand that this type of content takes a lot of time and effort to make, and probably isn't quite worth the investment and everything you guys have going on. Kyle, stay tuned. We will have some stuff soon that will hopefully make you happy. That is not associated with Easy Update. That's its own fun, separate thing. But yeah, stay tuned. Maybe 6 or so days. 5 days, I think, at this point. But yeah, I mean, particularly when you bring up mandatory update, I know this is like the worst answer that I could possibly give at this point because I'm such a broken record with this. But like, if we get an office, it gives us a lot more opportunity for us to all be in the same spot and produce this stuff. But not only with shooting, because I brought that up in the past where it's like, it helps when we're all together and then we can do more stuff like we used to be 5 days a week. But writing also helped with that as well. I was never involved. I popped in every now and then to grab somebody or to tell somebody something. So I observed the mandatory update writers meeting. But that is something that I was always envious of. Something that I imagine is extremely difficult is writing comedy. One thing that I love, there was a documentary, or it might have been like a podcast or something, did a behind the scenes on The Onion. And I've been a big fan of The Onion over the years. I've had a couple friends that have worked there. And they showed they detailed the Onion script writing process, or the process for producing headlines for the Onion. And they all get together and they pitch all of their ideas. They get into a room and they go person by person, and the person says, I remember one of the jokes that was shot down was somebody said, spork used as knife. That was the joke. That was the headline, the Onion headline. Spork used as knife. The joke being, a spork is a spoon and a fork put together. That spoon and fork is now being used for the third option that it was not originally designed for. And you, of course, include that with a picture of a spork being used as a knife cutting something. It's pretty funny, but I remember the team was like, no, next. And they, gone, shut down, done. Do never bring that joke up ever again. Not funny. Next. And I love that. I love that concept of like, oh, I had this funny idea, and you're just like, not funny, moving on. You're like, oh, and you just have to build a thick skin to be ready for those types of comments. And so I have a lot of respect for the mandatory update script writing process back in the day, because I imagine it was that. It was just kind of like Kyle was like, funny idea, and they're like, not funny. And Ian's like, funny idea, like, oh yeah, funny. And like Huber, funny idea, not funny. So, but again, that tough thing to do on Slack, tough thing to do on Google Chat or Skype. That is something that really, you pop into somebody's office and you go, mandatory update meeting, 30 minutes, let's go. And then everybody goes over to that conference room, has the meeting, gets it done. But yeah, again, focused scripted stuff. Basically, you're a number one, more focused scripted content, less podcasts, and more scripted stuff, meaning write a script, I read it. So more don't skips, more previews, more reviews, more retros, more stuff like that, less podcasts, and more group streams. I want to see you all get together and do a thing. There's a lot of you. I like your feedback against each other. I want you doing things together more. Those are basically your number two most commonly suggested improvements to Easy Allies. And they're probably the two things after our meeting, looking ahead at the rest of 2018. I was really hot on collaborations. We have done some, if you tune in this Friday, Mr. Daniel Bloodworth, next Friday, a week from Friday, GDC week, Mr. Daniel Bloodworth will be heading up to GDC. Worth noting, Mr. Bloodworth is doing that on his own dime, similar to how I do PAX every year. I handle the finances for PAX. Might not be able to do that this year. I think I might have done that the first year. I think Easy Allies covered my expenses for heading up to PAX because we had our panel. But we just kind of figured GDC wasn't something that wasn't really in the cards this year. We had a lot of expenses coming up between now and E3, and wanted to focus on those more instead, to the chagrin of Mr. Bloodworth. And Mr. Bloodworth was kind enough to be like, I'm going anyway. So Bloodworth is going. He's going to meet up with people. He's going to be on Kinda Funny with Mr. Tim Geddes the morning of Friday the 23rd. Because if our anniversary is on Wednesday, that's the 21st. That would be Friday the 23rd. So tune in. I want to do collaborations. We will be doing more, obviously, this year. But we've kind of shifted away because some of the other allies weren't as interested in doing a lot of that stuff. They were interested in other things. And so now those two things, more group stream type stuff, more multiplayer group stream, especially with focusing on things that are very multiplayer heavy. Your Rainbow Six, your Fortnite, your Sea of Thieves coming up next week. And exploring and producing on a more timely basis scripted stuff instead of the usually podcasty stuff that we do. So we hear you, and if I get more notes on Cup of Jones that fit into that, then we will focus on those. I got a weird little editorial for you this week. Hi everybody, I'm Brandon Jones. I'm gonna do a weird little editorial that I was tempted not to do. This is a random topic, a topic I've not brought up. So if you're like, nah, I don't care, Jones, later, feel free to tune out. I don't know how long this editorial is going to be, but it's something that's bothered me lately, and it came to a head in the last week, and I want to discuss it. It might be something that I brought up on Cup of Jones before. And that's Fortnite. So as you know, I am in love with Fortnite, specifically Save the World. The version that they're not making a mobile game out of, the version that costs you money, the version that is not currently taking over Twitch and the internet by storm. I play the single player version. It's a little bit like Destiny. You just you do your dailies, you load in, you go to a world, you either run around, shoot stuff, or build things and shoot stuff that's trying to destroy the thing you built, go around and rescue survivors, go around and just build things, and then you're done. Just you build a thing, and then you go over and build another thing. It's a great stress reliever. It features a lot of things that I like. I like the cartoony style. I like epic games. I like shooters. I like third-person shooters. I like deep progression systems. Why I like a lot of mobile games. So I've been playing Galaxy of Heroes for so long because I'm slowly leveling up and getting more people. They just added characters from Knights of the Old Republic too, so it's fun. I'm working on getting those characters and getting them into my my entourage. So I like games that have this slow burn. Fortnite has one of the largest skill trees I've ever seen in my entire life. I like zombies, if I didn't say that earlier. I like attempts at the apocalypse, or just creating that scenario. I like open world games. Each of these is its little own kind of Super Mario Odyssey sized island open world that you can run around in that just has like hard edges that you can fall off of. Lots of things I like about this game. Started playing this game right when it launched in early access. We have not reviewed Fortnite technically for Easy Allies. It's technically not out yet. But I've been playing the Save the World mode the entire time, and Save the World mode is getting frustrating. And it's getting frustrating for a way that I did not foresee. When I first started playing Save the World, there were people that were jumping in that were clearly part of the single player, that enjoyed the single player part of it, and then they add this Battle Royale mode, and so Fortnite becomes a lot more popular because it has this Battle Royale mode, and the Battle Royale mode is free. So a lot of people jump in, they check out Battle Royale, they really like it, but every time they log in, they gotta go past this menu that says Save the World or Battle Royale, and Save the World is the first option, which I think is fascinating, that when you go into the menu of Fortnite, it's what it defaults to. It might do that because I play Save the World so much. That might change for people that play Battle Royale more. It might default to Battle Royale. But from my perspective, how I see it, Battle Royale is the second option. So people got to go, boop, Battle Royale, every single time they want to play Battle Royale. And they got to skip this Save the World mode. And it's $40 to jump in right now for early access. You can spend more than that if you want, but the base price is $40 to get into the early access period for the Save the World mode. Every now and then they drop it to $20. They go half off. They did that over the holidays. I will do my best to alert people to whenever that happens, so they can join us in the fine, lovely world of Save the World in Fortnite. But I get the vibe that they have this $20 sale, and a lot of people playing Battle Royale are like, I'm going to check this Save the World mode out. And they jump and Save the World. The same thing happened to me when I was playing World of Warcraft, and I don't know if it happened when I was playing Final Fantasy XI, but there's different versions of chat in World of Warcraft. The first chat that you can go into is general chat. This is just chatting about everything. And then you could tab over to trade chat, And there would be, this is the chat for auction houses. This is a chat for meeting people to give over items, to trade stuff between the community. Well, the problem is people are lazy. And when I was playing World of Warcraft, nobody wanted to go over just that one tab over, that were just exhausting tab over to go to trade chat. And they just traded stuff in general chat. So you're going through general chat, just talking about World of Warcraft. People are like, hey, I'm setting this thing in the auction house. And you're like, stop. There's flooding, spamming the main chat with all this trade nonsense. I haven't played World of Warcraft in a long time. Maybe they fixed this. I don't know. Maybe it's worse than ever. But they basically just hijacked chat. They're just like, just chat, that's all that is. It's just trade. And this has happened in Fortnite, where you go into chat, and that's all anybody's talking about. Trade, 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 trade. You want trade? You want trade? Go into my world and we're trade. This guy scammed me. Hey, that guy's a scammer. Don't trade with him. I'm not a scammer. Yeah, you're a scammer. You took my gun. I gave you my gun. You want to get the gun. Why want to go over to this guy? I'm going to trade with this guy. Why traded with you before? You come into my world. Now I'm going to go into your world. And so if you want to join up with people in Fortnite, if you want, say you're doing what you have to do every now and then, which is defend your like core base of that world. There's 4 big environments, 4 big themed like zones, if you will, that you do all your little mini missions inside of. If you want to defend your base in that zone, you would go to chat and you basically say, hey, I'm going to do Storm Shield Defense 7 for Plankerton. Does anybody want to join me? You can't do that anymore. If you're like, hey, Plankerton goes flying by and it's just chat, trade, just gone. Like, no, this is trade chat now. That's all we use this for. And the thing that cracks me up about trade is this. So the way that Fortnite is built is, again, there's these 4 zones. And you have different types of materials that you farm in each of these zones to produce the type of weapons that you use in each zone. There is the leveling system in that game has been built around the way where you get your weapons for the zone that you're in, and now you're in your zone and you got your weapons. And when you have leveled up to the point where we recommend you move on to the next zone, because now you're going to get the less return on investment when you level. So you should probably move on to this next zone and start farming those materials to produce those type of weapons. But you get schematics in Fortnite. So you get a model. Again, if this is boring you, I love you. Thanks for watching Cup of Jones. Take off. But this is just something I've wanted to get off my chest. And I understand that this might sound like old man yells at clouds. This might be like, whoa, Jones is just going off. But it is a fascinating thing. And it is something, I'm not going to make this video public for sure. It is something that I just wanted to share, a grievance I wanted to share with you in Cup of Jones. So you get your schematics. So I'm not even going to call them like Canny Valley and Plankerton and these areas. We'll just call them zone 1, 2, 3, 4. So say you're in zone 1, which I think ends at level 40. I think, or 20, something like out of level 20, now you're ready to leave. And then at level 20, you move on to zone 2. And then at level 40, I think, you move on to zone 3. I'm currently level 69. I'm almost 70. Level 70 is the cap for zone 3. I'm not ready to leave zone 3 yet. I still have more stuff in the campaign to do. But what you've gotten, what the trend has been, is you get these players coming in to save the world that are the most impatient players I have ever seen in the history of me playing video games. People that want to level up so incredibly fast that they're constantly getting things that they're not ready for. So they're like level 28 and they're using weapons that they're not going to need for another 3 levels because they want that performance. They're like, I gotta have the best gun now. I gotta do the absolute top thing that I can possibly do right now. I can't wait. Imagine being a Monster Hunter and like 4 hours after playing Monster Hunter, you're like, I want the best bow. And you're like, you gotta wait, man. You gotta wait. You gotta put in your dues. Then you level up. Then you get the weapon. Then you use it. But the way that this is, I don't know if you can like drop items in Monster Hunter, because that's how this started, where you can load into a world in Fortnite and you can drop a weapon. And so somebody can run up and take that weapon. Like, well, thanks. And it's happened sometimes where like I'll be in a mission, some guy's like, I ran out, or I need a shotgun. And I'm just like, all right, boop, there's a shotgun. And it's freebie. There you go. And I'll drop it on the ground. So when people are like, do you want to trade? What they want to do is you go into the world, you drop your weapon on the floor, I'll drop materials or something to make that weapon, and then we'll trade. Because I am not a high enough level to get the schematic to make that weapon. Like I have a schematic for something that I can't make because it requires materials that I'm in a zone that I've basically leveled myself out of those materials. I've gotten an item so fast that I do not have the materials required to create it. And if you're new to video games, I get it. If you are just stubborn and you don't want to accept the fact that you are unprepared to have the materials that you have, I get it. But it's like, the game is telling you you're not ready. Like, that's what the game is doing. If you pick up an item in Witcher and you're like, oh, I can't equip this yet. Oh, because my charisma's not high enough. The game is telling you to get more charisma, and then you'll get that weapon. I'm just that's not how that works in Witcher 3, but like, and so when this first started to come up and I first started to see people like, wow, they are demanding weapons. They're not only demanding the schematic, they're demanding just the gun. So what they're doing is they're trading into a world, getting a handout that's gonna last them 30 minutes, and then they're empty again. And then they gotta ask for another handout. So these are people that are like, you know what's the way I'm gonna play Fortnite? I'm gonna ask for help constantly. At every single turn, every single moment of gameplay, playing Fortnite is going to be shackled to other players. I'm gonna immediately go into a zone. The other people in me are gonna be like, oh, what level are you? Like, it's so frustrating going to like a thing where I'm like, oh, here's a mission I'm gonna do where I'm gonna go rescue some survivors. The game is telling me I should be level 52 going into this. I'll go in and there's a guy who's level 14. I'm like, how the hell did you get here? And he's like, hey, can I have some guns? Can you give me some free stuff? And I'm like, no! You're not supposed to be here. I am gonna get less return on my investment in this mission right now because of you, because you can't help. You're shackled. There's nothing you can do. I don't care how good a player you are. This is numbers. This is like a beginner player jumping into Destiny and going straight to the end raid. They're not gonna help. The other 3-4 members of that fire team are gonna be like dragging this person along to help them out. And Fortnite Save the World has kind of turned into this forced dragging. This kind of like, well, you're a higher player, so you have to help me. All the time. Not just help me with this one thing, help in every single instance, meaning you don't have an inventory anymore. If you get a nice thing, you give it away immediately and in every instance. And I'm only bringing this up because I had a player the other day where I jumped into a mode. The player was the only other person in that mode. They were less than half the level required to do that. I think it was a level, like I said, a level 52, and they were like 21. They didn't do any of the objectives, ever, in the entire match. So they were just running around goofing off. And you can set the mode to private if you want. You can set Fortnite to private. So like, I'm just gonna go into this mode and farm some materials. I'm not gonna bother anybody else. This player was like, no, I wanna bother people. I wanna go into a mode, have them do all the objectives. I'm not gonna do anything to help them at all. They are getting no benefit from me being included in this mode at all. I am just taking from them. And not only is that enough, not only am I going to jump into this mode and not lift a finger at all to help that other person in any way possible, I am going to not ask, but demand that they give me free stuff. And they were like, hey, do you have materials? And I was like, no, I don't have materials. Hey, do you have this? I'm like, no. And like, hey, do you have this? And I just stopped talking to the person. The person runs over to where I am and starts running backwards in front of me. Like, hey, I'm trying to get your attention. Hey, shooting at me. Hey. And I'm like, leave me alone. And like, I bail, but I already put in 15 minutes out of 20 into this mode. So like, no, I'm going to finish this and I'm going to get the credit that I need for this. And they're finally like, I just need a gun. I don't have a gun. I can't do anything. I don't have a gun. And it's like, well, that's because you have leveled yourself out. That's because the game warned you and you said nay to the warnings. I would much rather inconvenience literally every single person I will meet in this game than play by the game's rules. And I finally was like, all right, leave me alone. And I made them a gun and dropped the gun. There you go. Take the gun. And they took the gun, used it for 2 seconds, ran back to me, and were like, I can't make ammo. Can you give me silver? I need silver to make the ammo. And this is, I'm not even kidding you, 80% of the people playing Save the World now. This is like what Save the World has turned into. And it was fascinating to me because I just didn't expect that from this, one of the most casual multiplayer games I have ever played. Like, I understand people getting obsessive about Destiny. I understand people getting obsessive about Monster Hunter. Like, these are huge games that a lot of people are playing. Fortnite is also a huge game, but not everybody's playing Save the World. They're playing Fortnite, or they're playing a Battle Royale. And here's this mode where you just go in and you run around, and when you get to the later levels, the environments look the same, dude. The enemies, the same enemies. Nothing changes, man. You just naturally, cozily move up the progression to get more powerful and then go to lower levels and help more people. And I was looking forward to that. Like, I'm the type of player that likes to help other people. I'm the type of player that likes to jump in. I'm the type of player that got that golden robe and journey and then played it more. Like, went back into the game and helped people and was like, hey, boo, come over here and do this objective. I love that. And I was looking forward to getting to a high level. I'm still looking forward to doing this, to getting to a high level where I can't level up anymore in Fortnite. I've capped out. I'm done. And all I can do now is just take all the benefit that I have from being at my high level and then spreading the love with the rest of the community. What I did not expect is the community would be demanding it by this point. That the community would be operating at a point where they're like, no, you have to do that. I will not play this game unless you give me free things all the time, constantly. And that just cracks me up. It seems like the hardest way to play that game. I can't imagine playing any game and needing things from the community constantly going into chat. Hey, I need more help. I didn't know that was possible. That kind of mentality in a game. To not just do that on the side. I've done that before. When you're in a game and you're just like, I would love some help to get past this one point, or like, I'm not quite ready for this, but if somebody could help me every now and then, just like, I had a bad day today. I need a little help with this. But to decide that's my modus operandi. That is the way I'm going to play this game. Is to handcuff myself to every single player, and to constantly to have everyone look at my number when I'm loading into a mode and go, to elicit that reaction from the community. And that's it. That's my rant on Fortnite. It's kind of frustrating with just where Fortnite is at. So don't feel bad, because I still enjoy playing Fortnite, and I'm at the point now where I can just ignore people like this. But I'm surprised. I'm surprised that someone who was anticipating getting to the point where they could help other people would get burnt out so fast on helping other people, on this demand from people. Because I know it's like the famous adage, if you've never heard it, you can teach a man you can give a man fish, but if you teach him to fish, he can feed himself forever. All I do in Fortnite is throw out fish now. That's it. Everybody's free fish, everybody. Everybody just comes, give me another fish, and then I know they're gonna be back not tomorrow, in an hour. I need more fish. I can't fish. I need fish. And as gamers, as human beings, I encourage you, learn to fish, please. Especially for a game as easy as Fortnite Save the World, especially for such a low stress environment where you're just running around doing dumb stuff. A game that I play, for half an hour to an hour every day just to relax. It's frustrating that at points it's not very relaxing for me anymore, but an interesting phenomenon. And what I'm curious about, Tanner needs the fish. I hear you, Tanner. I'm curious. I'm sorry. People probably wrote some really interesting, thoughtful comments that I have missed now. But I'm curious to hear you weigh in on this and what you think, or if you've noticed the same thing happen in Fortnite, or if you have noticed a similar instance of something like that happening in other games. Again, I've played a lot of MMOs. I have dealt with needy players. I've been surrounded by players that need in a multiplayer environment, that see someone put in a certain amount of hours to get to a certain point and think, how can I get that and not put in nearly as much work as they did? I get that. That's not video games. That's human beings. But I did not anticipate it manifesting in the way it did in Fortnite, because the work put in to getting the free thing is way more work than doing the thing. Then someone said, instead of just playing this game casually every now and then and being with people and running around and shooting stuff and then logging off and getting on with the rest of my life, I am going to constantly demand free things, which to me requires zero humility, tons of work, just typing, constantly in chat, help. While you're in the mode, while I'm in the mode, running around and shooting and throwing grenades and hoverboard and jumping off stuff and building walls. I'm having fun. They're just typing. They're just type. This is my Fortnite experience. Help. That's the version of Fortnite you picked out of your two options. It's fascinating to me. That's it. I'm done yelling at clouds. Hi, I'm an old man. I'm Brandon Jones. Again, this Sunday, Easy Allies in concert. Revengeance, 8 p.m. Pacific time. You can watch it, twitch.tv/easyallies. Tickets are still on sale. Plenty of tickets left, have not sold out. No, we're really close to selling out. Our tickets are going fast, everybody. You got to get in there and get tickets now. Tickets are a service for people to get into the venue. We don't want a bunch of random people showing up. We want people that want to go to the show to get into the show. So thank you to everybody that's bought tickets already. Apologies to people that can't make it. Thank you for supporting us, as you have clearly done on Patreon, because you are a $1 or above patron if you are watching this. And thanks to everybody that's going to be tuning in, not only online to our concert on Sunday night, but to all of our other fun festivities. We will have a fun show for you Tuesday night as well, as some fun stuff. Even if you don't get to watch the show on Sunday night, we will be premiering some fun things, so you will get to watch that on our YouTube following the show. And of course, the reaction from the concert, clip outs and the like, it will be available on our YouTube channel as well as live, and of course on our Twitch archive, so you can go check all of that out then. What are my other announcements at the top of the show? Souls Retrospective is up. Part 5 goes up Sunday, finally wrapping that up. coming in just right before we do. Right before a year since we announced the Souls retrospective, finally wrapping it up. And tonight, 6 p.m., twitch.tv/EasyAllies, you will view what apparently is a very problematic live stream that we do, the Hall of Greats. We will have 2 more games inducteed, guaranteed. That might change in the future, potentially, based on comments from today's episode. But as of tonight, there will be 2 new games added to the Hall of Greats. There will be some more fun surprises. I look forward to talking to you about the game that I think is one of the best games that anyone has ever created on planet Earth, that should very much so be in the Hall of Greats. And invite you to tune in. And we'll have some more streams this week and stuff going on here at Easy Allies. Thank you so much, everybody. Yeah, I think that's it. I think we're done. We got a new wired mouse, so I'm all plugged in now, which is nice. So I don't have to worry. Used to get a little latency problem with that mouse, but that mouse is nice and smooth now. There's going to be absolutely no problem in clicking this button right here by myself and wrapping up this episode of Cup of Jones. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'll see you tonight. Take care.